across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. Thank you very much, Steve, for joining us. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just coming up to 3 minutes past 10 o'clock. Lots coming up, and whether you are listening on DAB+ radio, watching on YouTube, listening on your smart speaker, watching on your connected device, all the different ways of getting in, of being able to hear and listen to us. Thank you very much, Steve, for joining us. Don't forget, you can always get in touch on all the big topics we're talking about. I've got a particular question for you today, but I have a funny feeling you may well decide other things are the topic. Who knows? There's an awful lot of stories around. We're going to try and cover as many of them as possible before 1 o'clock. Don't forget, if you miss anything of the show, you can go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we are going to discuss the former Tory Minister Nadeem Zahawi's defection to Reform UK. We're all going to discuss those Iranian protests. Hundreds more have been killed by the Tehran regime, maybe in the many thousands at this point. You know, internet off. They've even managed to block Starlink, which Elon Musk provided for people to contact each other. Is America going to act? And can America really be taken seriously? If Donald Trump said he would act, well, the time is now, Mr. President. We'll talk about that. Also, how a Jewish MP was, and this is so outrageous, banned from going on a visit to a local school in his constituency after a campaign of intimidation by pro-Palestinian, not activists, no, teachers at the school. Sack every single one of them today. No business being within 100 metres of a classroom, let alone actually sitting in a classroom with our kids. We'll talk about that. Plus, China building a secret room beneath its new London super embassy, posing a threat to the city. Now, we already knew about this. We already knew it was nuclear cables. The Telegraph has discovered that, oh my gosh, we're talking about a metre away from some of the most important secret communication cables for the city. And our Prime Minister later this week is very likely to approve the building of that super embassy for China. We are a crazy, crazy country to allow this to happen. Plus, we're going to be talking about those battles between the government and X and Grok. Ox, let's call it Ox, those AI sexualised images of women. They are going to, we're told, become a criminal offence this week. So currently it's sharing them that's criminal, but creating them, which is what Grok, the X's AI does, that's not illegal. But should it be? Should it not be? Well, it's better than a ban for social media, isn't it? But let's face it, would the government really go ahead with a ban for social media? And why would they be banning X over this, but they don't ban Pornhub? Love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Now, the number to get in touch with is on 0344 499 1000. Question I most want to hear from you today, but again, you are free to make the calls yourself on the topics you want to talk about. You're in charge of the calls. Former Tory Chancellor. OK, for about a couple of weeks, really. But Nadeem Zahawi, former party chairman as well. Most high-profile, most senior former Tory has defected to Reform. That was announced on the show yesterday, a high-profile press conference with Nigel Farage in Westminster yesterday. There's been a lot of reaction, both for and against. Quite a lot of backlash to both Nadeem Zahawi and indeed to Nigel Farage for having yet another high-profile Tory defect to his party. So what is your reaction? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Get in touch. 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs one standard network rate. Message you can get in touch on X for free at TalkTV. While we're still allowed to use X. Thanks, Keir Starmer. He's not using X, which frankly has raised the IQ of the stuff that's going on there by quite a big margin today. Anyway, joining me today, delighted to say, as always on a Tuesday, editor of Spiked Online, Tom Slater. Good morning.
Good morning, Julia. How are you doing?
Are you still on X, or have you decided to boycott it over being forced to see an image of me in a bikini that Rock made?
Of course not. I mean, I'm exclusively on Blue Sky these days, as everyone knows.
Have you ever looked at it? Because I can't. The thing is, all the woke people going onto Blue Sky go, we're leaving X because there are right-wing people on it who disagree with us and we can't cope with it. They move over to Blue Sky and apparently they've all got a bit bored because actually their main thing is shouting at us.
No, exactly. How can they exist without us there to...
We're quite happy to exist without them.
No, exactly. It's been great since the migration has taken place. But what funny thing about Blue Sky is that all this talk about how X is a uniquely toxic platform and something must be done about it. Blue Sky has a really big and noted problem with death threats. They're all over the thing.
Really? I thought they were the nice people, which is weird because all the nice people make those sort of threats all the time.
Like nothing says be kind like telling a turf you've got a bullet with her name on it, but that seems to happen all the time on that particular platform.
Well,
so an interesting twist.
Very interesting twist. No one's talking about banning Blue Sky, are they? I want to ask you about Nadeem Zahawi first up, and then I will come back because I do think this threats of bans on social media. We are in some serious territory here because let's face it, this government does have a bit of an issue with free speech. But Nadeem Zahawi's defection to reform. Look, he was Chancellor for 8 weeks, I think, give or take. Didn't really do anything as Chancellor, but he was Tory Party chairman. He'd been Education Secretary. He was a senior figure. He was one of those sort of, if in doubt, deploy Zahawi onto the airwaves to defend the government. He was a well-known figure in the government, I think, as much as cabinet ministers are well-known to ordinary people going about their daily lives. He announced he was defecting to reform. Now, look, he's no longer an MP. He was sacked. He didn't resign. He was sacked as a cabinet minister by Rishi Sunak over his own tax affairs, because he didn't declare that while he was Chancellor he was being investigated by HMRC over his tax affairs. And in fact, he had not paid all the tax that he was due to pay. And it banged to rights that he had to go. Tories say, actually, until Christmas, he was still on the phone begging for a peerage. People are desperate to get peerages. I do not understand why. And it's not like, I want the income, the 300 quid a day expenses allowance or anything. I mean, this man is a self-made, all credit to him, multi-millionaire. But he's defected to reform. He says he believes the country is broken and that reform is the only answer. Do you trust that he genuinely believes that? Do you think he'd be an asset to reform? Or do you think this is another, lots of people are claiming, rat leaving a sinking ship?
It's difficult, isn't it? Only really Nadeem Zahawi knows the answer to that question, I suppose. In politics, as I'm sure you've observed in your times in journalism, Julia, there's always a mix of impulses in politicians between conviction and self-interest. Nadeem Zahawi seems to have been a sort of Tory loyalist to basically every particular iteration of the Conservative Party during his time in Parliament, which means there's all kinds of positions that he's taken over the years, which a lot of reformers or a lot of reform activists wouldn't necessarily take kindly to. I think it is important from reform's perspective that they don't end up looking like a sort of retirement home for former Tory MPs. When the traditional retirement home for MPs, the House of Lords, is denied to them. These Tory briefings to be believed. That being said, I think that probably the intention is to send the message to maybe kind of former Tory voters who would be still a little bit nervous, maybe in the shires, shall we say, of voting reform, that this is the sort of party they can get on board with. I think it will, to be honest, pass the vast majority of people by, though.
This is
Nadeem
a very fair point.
Question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he did once write to... the social media posts have all been picked out, so he was saying, why has he not joined the, Reform Party? No chance. Been a Conservative all my life and will die a Conservative. But he actually wrote back in 2015... deleted on Monday as he announced his defection to Reform UK. I'm not British-born, Nigel Farage. I'm as British as you are. Your comments are offensive and racist. His family sort of Iraqi heritage. I would be frightened to live in a country run by you. That is quite a thing for someone to say and then join. Nigel Farage, meantime, has said, I thought Zahawi had principles, but tonight we learned all he's interested in is climbing that greasy pole. That's what he said in 22 when Boris Johnson appointed him as Chancellor of the Exchequer after the resignation of Rishi Sunak. He was Farage, thinks it was absolutely right that he should have been sacked as well, from this job. It is interesting, there's a lot of history that there's always a tweet. That's the issue. There's always a tweet, and that holds back a lot of politicians. But there is the argument I'm hearing from a lot of long-standing reform people. Again, we don't want to be a retirement home for failed Tories. That he has views which are, he's talked. I think back in 2013 he was talking about how illegal migrants should be given a one-off amnesty. Mind you, a position of Boris Johnson as well. He'd never actually anti-mass immigration. He basically, there was an exchange of tweets where he was absolutely promising there would not be a requirement for people to get vaccines, and then he did not, resign when the government actually pushed basically vaccine passports, something we campaigned and you campaigned very strongly for, both at Spike and here at Talk, against happening. And interesting, people did resign. Lord Frost, all credit to him, now head of the Institute of Economic Affairs, he did resign from government. That was the final straw. That there would be vaccine passports in terms of, people have bodily autonomy. The question is, does he have the same values as a lot of people who who've gone to reform because it didn't have the same values as the Tories.
No, I think that's a perfectly fair point. And I think when you look at the whole sort of spectrum of views that Nadeem Zahawi's expressed previously and the party that he's now aligning himself with, in the absence of a kind of explanation, a mea culpa, I did used to think this about Farage, but now I think it is obviously going to make people quite cynical. I mean, it's worth stressing that a lot of these high-profile Tory defectors, it's not entirely clear they're going to have a kind of leading role.
No, he doesn't want to be an MP. But also, by the way, where are you, Nadeem? I've messaged you. He's not been on the media round this morning, not responding to any messages. There was a long press conference. Nigel Farage got quite cross. When Nigel Farage gets tetchy with people, he's not happy with the questions, all of which I thought were completely reasonable, justifiable questions. But if they thought it was successful, he would be out doing the media rounds this morning, surely.
No, exactly. I think there's a kind of sense in which it hasn't landed particularly well with certain sections of their support base, I think that's fair to say, who again don't want to see reform just being reheated Conservative Party, which is fair enough. I mean, it's worth stressing that most of the people involved at reform at the top level, they might not have been formally kind of Tory MPs or whatever, but were certainly Tories at one point.
Nigel Farage would have been a Tory. Richard Tice was a Conservative Party member.
So, there's something...
Lee Anderson,
There is, exactly, Lee Anderson in particular. I mean, but at the same time, I think... one can read too much into some of these defections. I think really for reform, the focus is on how they go forward, not kind of what previously known MPs are defecting.
I mean, a lot of them people. I mean, again, I don't think Nadine Dorries was a good move in terms of something. Clamp down to censorship and things like that. That said, I'm informed that actually her move over. She's got that column in the Mail. She appeals to a lot of sort of Tory women, and apparently she has massively helped them with the reform woman problem, which they don't. They have more support from men than from women. You need different people. Do you think the gamble by Nigel Farage is, and which is why he's happy to sort of get rid of the Rupert Lows, the Ben Habibs, has no truck for the Tommy Robinson side of things, and that actually, at the end of the day, the votes on the right, and it's not far right, the votes on the right are going to be there. At the end of the day, on election day, 29 or whenever it is, people are going to go, well, I've got a chance to get a government that I agree with at least a lot of the things, if not all, and they will vote for reform. Whereas the only space to get more votes that he needs to take them from other parties is further to the centre ground. And therefore that's where he's got to go, and that's why wooing those Tories. And also, again, how many people who've got experience in government, experience in politics, and know how things work and could be useful in advising that, or top-level business experience, are they going to be who are likely to go to reform, who have not, at some point, if they're politically interested, been a member of the Tory party?
No, I think that's...
When there's the only options available.
No, that's an absolutely fair point, and I think whenever you have a defection, people are just going to measure it up against how genuine does it seem, how much are they actually adding, or is this someone who, frankly, might not have made a great fist of their time in government, or just a bit of a name, and therefore they're trying to dine out on that. I think it's totally true. The people,
Jake Berries.
Yeah.
No, I just want a job. Can I have a job?
Again, only he can answer that question, but nevertheless, that is a big problem for them. I think the discussion that you see on kind of sections of X or whatever, the problem with reform is that it's nowhere near right-wing enough, I think, is completely for the birds. That being said, excuse me, I also think that this isn't about them trying to soften, move towards the centre ground in the way we previously understand it. The way in which it's not becoming the One Nation caucus of the Conservative Party, which was never anywhere near the centre ground. A lot of the positions that Reform currently occupy in relation to migration and sovereignty and nation are the centre ground. The difficulty is getting that message across, and also I think tapping into voters who might be sympathetic on those issues, but because of the smear campaign, the demonisation of this party and all the rest of it, they're still nervous about going near it. That's the
thinking
battle,
we should have control of our borders and put criminals behind bars and have more rights for people who, welfare for people who are born and British in this country rather than people who've just arrived, is not an extremist view. It's not a far right view. It is quite bizarre. I mean, a lot of the things that Labour believe, frankly, I mean, the trans madness, the eco madness, all of that. I mean, there's taxes on wealth. These are the extremist views by any stretch of the political spectrum. Love to hear your thoughts on this. I can already tell you want to get in touch. Lots of calls already. 0344 499 1000. Let's also talk about the battles between the government and X and Elon Musk. Now, I'm not happy with these grok AI images. As I say, it was done to me. I don't feel the need to force this on you again. Another picture. It's not even me. I mean, it's not my body because they put a bikini on. But I mean, again, better tummy than I've got not as good boobs. I'm going to say that. I'm sorry, I'm going to be honest. But also, weirdly, not my face or my hands, which is really strange. Like, so I'm wondering whether was it illegal and they got away with it, but they changed my face so it wasn't me. It just looked like it was, from a distance it was me. But someone asked up Grok for some weird reasons. By the way, we need to check your hard drive and you need psychological help, mate, to see a picture of me in a bikini. And Grok does it. Not illegal for Grok to do that. And apparently all these other AIs are doing it. I'm sorry, I spend my time, doing more useful things like, I don't know, watching Netflix and doing this. But the government says that by the end of the week they can make it illegal to do this, but it is illegal to share this. Now, my issue is, A, they're doing it to women who don't, I've been around. I'm not going to be, feel threatened or unhappy. I'd rather someone hadn't done that, but I'm not going to be like, all clutching my pearls about it. But I definitely think there are a hell of a lot of women. Most women will be horrified by that being done to them. It's being done to children. I mean, that should definitely be illegal. But I think people have a right to have their images not distorted in a sexual way. And a lot of these, they're often putting women in very sexual positions as well. And I think, frankly, Elon Musk has pushed a lot of this because he pushes an awful lot of these images on his own Twitter feed, all about, these horrible, grossly distorted, sexualised, cartoonish images of women on Grok. And I'm sorry, it's like a teenage boy. It's really creepy, frankly, in a grown man. But the government has been threatening to actually ban X. We've got this Ofcom investigation. But it's weird because people can still access Pornhub. And a number of these porn sites, they've had to take down, was it Pornhub that had to take down 70% of their images? One of the major sites said after it was exposed that they had not got the permission of the women who were in these pornographic videos to be. This is outrage. No one's talked about taking Pornhub down in this country. Yeah, it's harder to access without a VPN unless you put your details in. But why X? Is it because the threat of X is?
Of course it is, Julia. I think we all know that this isn't about Grok and these creeps and sickos who are using them to digitally undress women and even children.
Look at pictures of me in a bikini. You sickos. Tom said it.
You made that inference, not I. But it's obviously not just about that. First of all, if you look at what some other governments around the world are doing in response to this, not necessarily ones we want to take lessons from in terms of issues of regulation, but Indonesia and Malaysia, they've just blocked Grok itself for a period of time whilst it gets its house in order. They haven't taken X off of the internet over there. These are very socially conservative, Muslim majority countries, not the sort of places you would normally look to for proportionate regulation. But they haven't gone as far as what the Labour government are talking about going as far as, which is to take not just Grok down, not just to say that this particular AI tool needs to be changed, but to say that X itself may potentially be banned in this country. Similarly, as you say, if you were primarily concerned about the issue of safeguarding, why would you start with Grok? I mean, even moving away from the question of kind of pornographic websites, Snapchat, according to police figures, is far and away the #1 site for child grooming, for instance. I think it's whenever they actually record a platform in the figures, almost half of the time it's Snapchat. So why hasn't Ofcom launched an investigation into them? The reason X is in the crosshairs is not this particular issue of the bikini pictures and so on and so forth. It's because of this long-running feud between Keir Starmer and Elon Musk, because of the fact that the liberal left in general are freaked out by the fact that there is at least one major social media company now where more or less you can say whatever it is that you want, and the fact that Elon Musk has basically become one of those prominent critics of this government, whether or not we like that, don't like that.
They forced them over the grooming gangs.
The grooming gangs, illegal migration, many of these issues. I mean, even I was thinking about the Alaa Abd al-Fattah nonsense over the Christmas break. If it wasn't for X leaping into action and people going through social media feeds, that wouldn't have been a scandal.
The Foreign Office apparently can't check social media feeds.
But you and I can.
Yeah, exactly. No, so it is extraordinary, isn't it? But again, this thing, what I find extraordinary is the number of MPs, the Labour MPs and cabinet ministers, and their outrage at these images and how these are the most disgusting, vile images. This is an outrageous crime against women. I don't think it should be allowed. I really don't. I'm sorry. I don't think free speech extends to you undressing women on digitally. I'm sorry. I really, without their consent, I don't think it does. And if you think that's an important part of free speech, then I think you should seek help. But the idea that what is happening digitally like that is anything close to what is happening right now at 10:22 in the morning to some girls, probably hundreds of them, maybe thousands of them, in towns and cities across these countries when they are being raped by men old enough to be their fathers or grandfathers, having been drugged and given alcohol and basically threatened, and that is going on, and that has been going on for 20 years, and this Labour government, and the last Tory government didn't do enough, but this Labour government and Labour councils did nothing, not only to stop it, but covered it up. For them to be outraged, and then didn't think there should be inquiry, because that would make you far right, jumping on a bandwagon. If the level of outrage at digital pictures on X, if they could show the same level of outrage and urge to action for that, as they do for grooming gangs, as they do for that, that would be encouraging. Yeah. I just think I genuinely think it's weird to be as concerned about these AI images as they are, when they clearly are really not that bothered about real girls not being digitally altered to be in a bikini, but being gang raped. I find that very difficult to understand.
No, I think that's very well put. And this is the Labour Party. This is the Liberal left these days.
People.
There was far more discussion at the time about, Westminster and maybe a journalist at one point or another maybe having a hand on the knee than there was about the grooming gangs issue.
Yeah.
I mean, this is writ
Someone
large.
slapped a Hollywood actress on her backside.
Let's talk about it for 6 months. Grooming gangs, let's cover it up.
We'll wear ribbons, we'll wear ribbons, we'll wear black at the Golden Globes.
This is who you're dealing with. So, we will not take lectures on the issue of sexual violence in the Labour Party.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
I mean, really, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. Let's also talk about this Jewish MP. He was banned, basically, from going on a school visit in his own constituency. This is Damien Egan, the Labour MP for Bristol North East. It was a visit to Bristol Brunel Academy in September. Get your kids out of that school. Seriously, if your kids are at Bristol Brunel Academy, if I were you and I was a parent, I would get my kids out of that school today. Get them anywhere else. Your kids are in danger. If they're being taught by the people here who thought that an MP shouldn't be allowed to visit that school because he's Jewish, and those teachers are in that school teaching your kid, you need to get your kids the hell out of that school. I'm telling you that right now. Now, this story only emerged because the Community Secretary, Steve Reed, said at an event, a conference, a Jewish conference at the weekend, that how difficult the situation was, how awful the anti-Semitism was, when he said, and he didn't name the MP, but it's now emerged, it was this Damien Egan, had basically had his visit cancelled after a campaign by pro-Palestinian teachers. Threats from parents to keep their children at home. Well, frankly, those parents, I've got worries about them. Send the social workers around. But basically, the teachers threatened to wear keffiyehs to school on the day. Well, they should have been sacked on the spot for wearing a political item. And basically they said that they said they basically they had safeguarding concerns, and the school leaders at the academy, so they had to cancel the visit. I mean, this is a democratic elected member of parliament unable to visit a local school because he's Jewish and he supports Israel. Well, I'm not Jewish, but I support Israel. Can I visit the school? I mean, this is just repulsive and disgusting. Every single teacher involved needs to be sacked on the spot. I'm sorry, it's not freedom of speech, this. This is stopping freedom of speech. This is disgusting.
And everyone would recognise that if some of the characteristics were switched around. Everyone, if this was a black British MP who, at some school, some lunatics in there decided that it was illegitimate for them to visit because of some convoluted reason about foreign policy, everyone would recognise this as straightforwardly racist. It's just that this is the exception that people have alighted upon. And
some people have alighted
No, of course.
on.
But what is almost more horrific than the instance itself is the fact that this stuff doesn't really surprise us. This stuff doesn't generate a real deep conversation about how we've allowed such genuinely bigoted people into all levels of our public sector.
Our schools are lost in large parts
schools,
of,
the trans,
the critical race theory, the anti-Semitism, the pro-Gaza. They come out and they claim it's pro-Gaza, but it's not. It's anti-Semitism. It's what it is. It is absolutely. It's all over teacher training. It's in so many of the teachers on the left who, it's a serious problem.
Yeah,
and they're giving it to our kids.
And the question I have to answer, because people try and make this distinction, this is not about him being Jewish, it's about him being a Zionist. Most British Jews are Zionists, so therefore,
something like 90%.
Almost
95%.
by definition, you therefore don't think any Jewish MP is welcome at your school.
Anyway, it's not illegal. He's not supporting a terrorist group. It's not illegal for an MP or anybody to have support for a country which is a democratic country and one of our closest allies.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in the same way, it would be outrageous if there was a MP of Turkish background who still thought the state of Turkey had a right to exist. This is just because you might not like what Erdogan is getting up to. Does not mean that you would think that that person shouldn't be anywhere near.
Doesn't involve Jews, Tom. Doesn't involve Jews, so they wouldn't feel strongly about it. Again, by the way, amazing. I have not seen any roads closed down in the last week or two about with all these people who are desperately concerned about the plight of young people, children being killed because they're trying to just stand up and resist their the terrible regimes. They care a lot about Gaza, yeah? Not that bothered about Iran. Just barely anything.
Nothing.
Just barely anything on social media from these people. I mean, the Gary Linekers, not shed a tear apparently. Bit busy. Again, Greta Thunberg trapped under something heavy, can't reach her phone. Maybe she's on that flotilla already heading in the direction of Iran. Who knows? But I mean, no protests, no nothing from the usual suspects. And yet we now know, I mean, the reals that people are talking about figures in the high hundreds of people who've been shot, mainly young people out on the streets. It is very likely to be already well into the thousands, and yet we've yet to have any action from Donald Trump when he promised he would do that. 25% tariff on countries doing business with Iran. Yep, that's that will hasten the economic problems. Us boarding a load of shadow tankers carrying Iranian oil, that will help as well. But by the way, why were we Russian oil, whatever? Why were we not doing that already? But at the end of the day, I mean, come on. Trump said he was going to act. He's got to act now, hasn't he?
Well, I mean, he's drawn that red line for himself. The question is, what does acting look like? Is it cyber attacks? Is it actually some sort of from-the-air military intervention? I mean, one thing that I think has become clear about Trump is that whilst he doesn't want to get too entangled, he's very willing to kind of get in and get out with certain interventions that he has made. But again, it's one of those things where it remains to be seen what form that may or may not take, whether or not it hastens the end of this regime or not, whether or not that actually creates a kind of greater siege mentality amongst the regime there as it clings on to power. But I think if nothing else, our minds have to be focused on the courageous rebels, and also the fact that as we grimly suspect, hundreds if not thousands of them are now having their bloodshed under the cover of this internet blackout, which has been imposed. So
absolutely. Your thoughts on all of the stories we're talking about, plenty more to come. Do stay tuned. 0344 499 1000. I'm, as always, talked far too long, and we're going to squeeze in a couple of your calls. Interestingly, both calls are coming up about Nadim Zahawi's defection. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and all the other topics. Give us a call. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is indeed Talk, the home of common sense. 10:31 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number that Matthew has called. He's in Warrington. Matthew, you want to talk about Nadim Zahawi's defection to reform. Do you reckon it's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing, Julia. Good morning to you as well.
Morning.
Thank you for having me. I think it's a good thing. I think all these people ringing up saying that belittling it and having a go at it. I think a lot of them are just left-wing activists, just to try and have any little chance they can to belittle reform in any way possible. They will do. If anyone's got any sense, you know, if you're building a business up, you try and get the best people for the job, and everyone knows that reform are a bit thin on the ground. So someone of that political strength and business education is only going to be a good thing for him. Yeah, all right, he's got a little bit black mark about the HMRC, but
quite pay all his
politician
taxes.
hasn't got a skeleton.
No, there is that. I mean, there is that. But this is the thing. For me, there's an argument like, how many people do you think are going to defect to Reform or go join Reform who are high profile, who are interested in politics, who haven't been in the Tory party? Do you think, I mean, you say like a lot of the criticisms from the left, yeah, the Guardian's done a whole load of these tweets and exchanges between Farage and Zahawi over the years. But I know an awful lot of people who got in touch with me yesterday after the news who were really staunch Reform people and who are horrified by yet another Tory. They were horrified by Nadine Dorries going over, and they're horrified by a whole load of, frankly, a lot of no-marks going over. Now, Nadine, neither of them are no-marks. They were in serious figures in the last few Tory governments. But their view is that this shouldn't be, you know, just the leftovers for the Tories.
I think come May, when we have these elections, I think you're not just going to see Tories coming over, you're going to see a lot of Labour coming over as well. Because I think Reform are actually talking common sense politics, not like Labour. And you can't criticise the Tories because they are working hard, and you know you've got to admire what I say, but it's too little, too late. And after 14 years, you know,
you just don't believe it.
No, I don't. They let us down massively. Yeah. So you've got to give now. You know, everyone's saying Nigel's a one-man band. I don't think he is. He's seen people coming in now, and they're getting a bit of meat on the bone, aren't they?
Danny Kruger's and they're
the real deal. They mean the business. They're being honest and open. They're going on talk shows, radio shows, news shows, and they're putting themselves out there, and they're taking the hit. So. Let's see. I'd like to have a conversation with you in May after these elections and then see where we are.
Very interesting. Yeah, really interesting call, Matthew. Thank you very much indeed for that. Let's go to Andrew, who's in Hertfordshire. Hello, Andrew. What do you want to say about Zahawi's defection?
Yeah, it is irrelevant. He doesn't want to stand as an MP. And as your last caller said, this is fantastic because all Labour had was 14 years in opposition and Sue Gray, and they couldn't make things happen.
No time to plan. No one who knew what things were going. Do you think that he's clearly a very successful businessman. He understands about the polling side of things, where he made his money. He's got a track record there. He's been a player in government. Do you think that that help will be useful to Reform?
It's hugely. His currency is watch yes minister. Remember, he's dealt with civil servants. The Labour Party hadn't. And you give Starmer his due, he now realises that that's the problem, the blob. And the reality of it is if you stack your party with advisors that have been in government, they will very quickly identify when you're being given the runaround by civil servants. Let's broaden this inquiry. That's how we got to the situation. And by the way, it's marvellous what you said about in relation to the young girls this morning. Very, very good statement. Well done,
so true, though, isn't it? No, I think that's a really interesting point. But two callers very positive about Zahawi. Are you more negative? I'd love to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. We're going to take a quick break. We'll find out what Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun, thinks up next. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. Let's go straight to my next guest, Trevor Cavan. He's former political editor of The Sun. Good morning to you, Trevor.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. So can I ask you, what do you make of Nadeem Zahawi's defection to Reform? Will that overall be a plus point or a minus point for the Reform Party?
I think it depends how things shell out. But
don't sit on the fence, Trev.
I'm not going to sit on the fence. I think that, look, I've known Nadeem not very well, but I've known him since he was Jeffrey Archer's chauffeur as a young Kurdish migrant at the age of about 20, when he was slim, dark-haired, and very good-looking. So things have changed a lot since then. I think that the big problem for both Reform and for Nadeem, for Zahawi, is that he looks like an opportunist. And I think that comes across very clearly when I believe the stories that he was seeking a peerage before he decided to jump ship after being refused one.
Yeah. Why do so many politicians want a peerage?
A peerage gives them a place in the Parliament. And it gives them a lot of freedom too. I mean, once they've got that pass into Parliament, they can stand up and they can say things, and they can represent interests that might be beneficial to them as well as beneficial to the country. So, I mean, you have to question the whole point about the House of Lords, really. But yes, I think it is a credential that still has a lot of weight in today's society.
I suppose you get good restaurant tables too, don't you? A little bit of Lord Zahawi. I mean, whether he's been promised one by Nigel Farage or not, but, who knows? Does it matter that he said, he would be frightened of living in a country run by Nigel Farage in a former tweet?
Well, I think all of those things do matter, because it shows the credentials of the man who is jumping ship, having said one thing and now doing quite the opposite. So, I mean, the simple fact is that Nadeem Zahawi was Chancellor of the Exchequer for barely a month, and having to resign over tax issues, which, as Chancellor, were the very last things that he should have even been anywhere near. So, look, that shadowy position cannot be ignored or forgotten.
Yeah, although, as we were just discussing, I'm not quite sure, people who've been involved in politics and most likely defectors are going to be Tories, although one of our callers points out, I think it's quite right, there'll be some Labour defectors as well, that, where do people think they're going to get these people from who've had experience of government? Let's talk about wider issues. Let's talk about the Jewish MP, though, who was extraordinarily banned from a school visit after pro-Palestinian activist teachers basically, couldn't promise his safety. I mean, this is apparently some parents said they would keep their kids home from school because he was Jewish and he supports Israel. This is unacceptable, is it not?
Well, every time I come on your show, Julia, I find myself saying, I cannot believe this.
Yeah.
It's, every day something happens in the country, largely because of this government, but also in the period when the last government was in office, which absolutely beggar belief. And this is a man who is an elected member of Parliament in his own constituency, wanting to visit a school in that constituency and finding himself facing a rebellion by teachers who are threatening to wear pro-Palestinian headscarves and stopping an elected MP from entering that school. This does beggar belief. And it is impossible to imagine how it was even conceivable that he could be barred from that visit.
Yeah, but again, these things keep on happening. We keep on having situations where, the police standing by and doing nothing when it comes to an Israeli restaurant in Notting Hill being surrounded by protesters, banning the Jewish Israeli fans of a football team coming from Israel in Birmingham last November, lying about it, still amazingly in their jobs, rather than actually facing up and tackling and facing head on the threats of violence from Islamist extremists. The issue is, and this is a problem, we've imported this problem, and the woke left, and again, this is a Labour MP, Egan, that they've embraced it. Well, it's come back to bite you in the backside.
Yes, and this has been brewing for a very long time. And when the police do nothing, they are doing something. They are ignoring a potential threat to peace and security in this country on the very doorsteps of our citizens. So what is going on is as I say, inconceivable, except it's happening. It's happening every day, and it's showing that the extremists, and I'm using the word extremists as a very wide embracing term for a community that is causing enormous problems for this country, which are escalating by the day, as we're basically saying here, and about which we are doing nothing as far as the authorities are concerned. We're giving them a freedom to do and say exactly as they please at the expense of a minority, and a very large minority now, a growing one, of ordinary citizens who are outraged by this.
And again, we hear from the Labour government, oh, you know, tolerance is an important key British value. Yes, it is. So tolerance of other people having different views and saying that's fine for you to have that view, and I'll debate and discuss it with you in a peaceful way without making physical threats to you to prevent you having your conversation or to actually kill you, because that is also one of the thinly, not even thinly veiled a lot of the time, threats. You know, when you have leaders of a particular community, and it is extremist leaders, not the ordinary rank and file people going about their daily business who are also Muslim, you know, that needs to be stamped down on. I mean, again, put me in charge. I'll deal with that one. I mean, I'll probably need security the rest of my life, but I would deal with it because it's untenable. Our country, Europe, I would say, cannot continue down this line because we are in very scary territory. We're also in very scary territory, I think, on two other major stories I wanted to run about you. A terror suspect, this is Abu Zubaydah, who's represented, what a surprise, by Lord Hermer. He keeps coming up into news, doesn't he? He's Keir Starmer's Attorney General and big mate and mentor, human rights lawyer. He represented this terror suspect. He's the one who's just been handed this massive, we're told, substantial payout, I'm assuming then well into six figures at least, by the UK, because he was basically rendered and tortured and held captive and is still in Guantanamo Bay by the US. We didn't get involved in any of that other than the fact MI6 and MI5 passed on some questions knowing that these things were happening to him, and now we're doing a massive payout. But what a coincidence, the government that's got the Attorney General, who happened to be the human rights lawyer who represented him, is making that payout of your and my money. Well, A, why the hell are we paying this guy a penny? And B, this is not the most outrageous, I mean, just the most outrageous conflict of interest.
The worst thing about this is that basically it's being carried out in absolute secrecy. We didn't know this was happening. We didn't know it was under consideration. We don't know how much money is being paid. We don't know where it's coming from. It's actually coming from you and me and everybody else in the country except the Attorney General, who is basically rubber stamping the case of his former client. And, you know, I don't have much truck with the Guantanamo Bay process of detention and interrogation. But this is nothing to do with us. This is America. And the system of justice over there shouldn't be subsidised by payments from us here in Britain.
Yeah, absolutely. Just finally, I want to ask you about this Chinese embassy. We've known for a long time that there's plans for this big Chinese embassy. Could cross the river from where I am in the studio right now. I could pretty much see the site where it would be, near the Tower of London. We've known for a long time that it's basically right near these secret cables, these key communication cables that go to the city. Big concerns about that location and about what the Chinese would use this for and why they need this super embassy. Basically, the biggest embassy they have in the world would be in London. Big concerns about when the plans were finally revealed that actually there's just an entire room, a secret room. We've got no information at all on what that would be used for. I think we can safely say. The Telegraph has now managed to look at proper plans and put them in alongside what the cabling is, where the cables are for the city. And basically we're talking about an embassy that would be about a metre away from these top secret, absolutely vital communication cables. And by all accounts, the Prime Minister is going to give the nod and the go-ahead to this Chinese embassy being built ahead of a visit to China in a month or so's time. I mean, again, this is absolutely madness, isn't it?
It is. It is. This is the biggest story of the day, and not just today. And it's a story until and after this building is built. And we now know, basically, that the government is going to give carte blanche to the Chinese authorities to do literally as they please. The Telegraph has done us an enormous favour by unveiling what is actually planned there, which is this sub-basement, where they have the facilities to build very powerful technology which will require all sorts of heat-generating artificial intelligence and other electronic power to do what we know not what, frankly.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
very close to the absolute heartbeat of the City of London, which is still a very, very important part of the international financial system. And it's not just that either, Julia. I mean, I remember when I was political editor, I was told that at least one major government, foreign national government, they had in the basement of their embassy, and I know the name of the government, but I won't reveal it now, which was in fact a prison cell, or cells,
Wow.
possibly torture chambers.
Wow.
So we do not know in a territory which is basically Chinese territory.
Yeah.
Once it's become an embassy,
We won't be able
cannot
to
go in
enter
there.
it. Yeah. I mean, absolutely, absolute insanity, but it's going to go ahead. We know it because we're going to kowtow to them. It's just extraordinary. Trevor Kavanagh, really appreciate you joining us. Good luck with that cough. We've all got the same one. It's the New Year cough. Hooray for all of us, eh? Thank you very much. I'm going to come back to Tom Slater after the top of the hour because I want to get to a quick break. And we're going to be talking to Kelly J. Keane, the brilliant, the wonderful Kelly J. Keane, founder of Let Women Speak, about these threats by the UK government to ban X. But why X? And why are they so concerned about deep fake images of women, not so concerned about real images of women on Pornhub elsewhere? Well, we'll talk about that with her. This is Talk.
The UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:51 is the time. Let's go straight to my next guest, Kelly J. Keane. She's founder of Let Women Speak, a fantastic campaigner on behalf of women's rights, and joins us to talk about, well, why on earth the government wants to ban X. Good morning to you, Kelly J.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. There's a lot of talk about, from Labour politicians, the government, saying how outraged they are that there are all these images that that Elon Musk X is allowing its AI Grok to create, and they've done it to me. I'm sure they've done it to you, to take an image of a woman fully clothed that she's put online and put her in a bikini or put her in a sexual position, put her in underwear, and that apparently not right now is not illegal. But the government is threatening, and we've got an Ofcom investigation as well, that the possibility X could be taken down in the UK because of this. Is that a reasonable response?
No, it's so dishonest, isn't it? I just can't help feeling there's some other agenda somewhere.
Oh, what might that agenda be?
Well, the government are very unhappy about this notion of free speech. I saw one of the grooming gang survivors who speaks out quite a lot, and she said, X it won't stop this abuse of women, but it does enable women who have been abused to talk about it.
Yeah.
And she was worried that might be one of the reasons the government was doing it. But if they were serious about safeguarding children and safeguarding women, they would be dealing with pornography. I think it would be really silly to think that any pornographic film that manages to get into your phone isn't a child, doesn't include a woman who's been coerced, isn't uploaded unwillingly, or a crime hasn't been committed. So until we know that, I think anything to do with X on the basis of safeguarding anybody is just nonsense.
Yeah, because exactly. I mean, exactly as my guest Tom Soter pointed out earlier. Actually, when you look at, for instance, grooming of children, real life stuff, not someone doing it on AI. It's largely happening on Snapchat, where the children are. Why are they not banning Snapchat? But also, interestingly, I think you put out a tweet which Elon Musk retweeted, saying, I think it's got, tens of millions of views about, why, ban X but not Pornhub, and it's a fair point. And again, I was saying earlier. Pornhub, and I wasn't sure whether it was Pornhub, but it's definitely Pornhub. Pornhub in 2020, as a result of an investigation, basically they had to remove 10 million of the 13.5 million videos they had on their site. I mean, a huge percentage. I mean, most of their videos, because they had no proof of that they had the identity of the women, that the women had consented, or they had the age, because a lot of these women, frankly, were not women; they were girls, and they'd just been uploaded by people, and it could be revenge porn, it could be who knows what, women forced, coerced into this, and they had no proof of it. I mean, but we haven't seen a ban on Pornhub, have we?
No, we absolutely haven't, have we? I mean, there was something about Roblox years ago that was really dangerous for children. We didn't ban Roblox. In fact, I still know some parents allow their children on it. They shouldn't. But yeah, we don't take it seriously at all. We even tell children in PSHE in schools that watching pornography is normal. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just not realistic. And we don't deal with any of the other issues around porn. So I don't buy it at all. I think this is just a very good way of trying to stop what is one of the only free speech platforms that exists. I got banned for 4.5 years when it was Twitter.
But and remind us what your terrible crime was.
What did I do? I think I just kind of flagrantly called men. Or
did you correctly gender a man claiming he was a woman?
Exactly. I mean, it's terrible. I also said it was wrong to try and transition children. So I'm
yeah, I mean, frankly, I don't know why we haven't executed you, frankly, by now for those heinous crimes. I mean, this is the thing. I don't want governments being in control of this. Tell you what, I definitely don't trust Ofcom to decide these things. If you could see some of the nonsense complaints I have to deal with from Ofcom, I mean, time-wasting nonsense that Ofcom bothers me with. And I'm really sorry. I've got no time for that organisation. You may as well. You basically got the Labour Party in charge of Ofcom. Who are we kidding? But at the end of the day, they're claiming they care about the safety of women and girls, and they are very, very angry about this. And as I was saying earlier, I wish they were as angry and outraged by these AI images of women in bikinis. And I want them banned. I'm sorry. I don't think people should be allowed to make and put out an image of me that purports to be an image of me in a bikini. I don't think they should. And I wouldn't impose that on other people. I don't know how they would want to. But and especially not to younger children. And I think it's just creepy, frankly. But they don't seem to be so concerned about it when it's when it's happening. Girls in real life are being hurt, or being, as I say, gang raped by these grooming gangs, are being harassed by men on the streets, and they don't seem to do anything about that.
No, they don't at all. And I also sort of I think my first thought when they said about banning X is, oh, you can do it then. Like, you can do that thing that has always apparently been so difficult, when most of us who are parents, or not even, you don't even have to be a mother to care about the safety of kids. But most of us well, why isn't that banned? How can children have any access whatsoever to these really harmful sort of images? And I always thought, well, it must be because they can't.
Yeah.
Surely they can't. And now we find they can. But at the same time, the government is saying, well, it's very difficult and complicated to keep men out of women-only spaces. Yes. So I think they're just liars. They have an agenda. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I think it has something to do with the many, many people interviewed under caution and arrested for their speech in this country. I think they might be linked.
Yeah, I think you may be right. I'm generally not a conspiracy theorist, but they basically see Twitter as a problem, X as it's now known. And if you think about, the pressure on them over grooming gangs, pressure on them over illegal immigration, pressure on them, on all governments, and all political parties over, people like me and, people campaigning on lots of freedom of speech issues, campaigning against, lockdowns and things like that. X is a problem because people are saying what they really think and people are finding out that other people agree with them. It's the same reason why, social media gets banned and controlled in China and Iran and places like that.
If you weren't on X, would you even know about the incredible situation in Iran?
No.
I just don't think you would. And I get loads of DMs thanking me for even promoting the stories. Not that I'm the only one by a long stretch. Thankfully, the community, I think, on X is really positive and very good at spotting AI by the regime, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's been a really positive force for good.
And I think it put the pressure on the BBC to start covering it, despite the fact they got an entire Persian service, but apparently didn't think it was worth telling the British public about what was going on. Kelly J. Keane, you've been a fantastic campaigner. Again, I wish the government felt a bit more strongly about protecting the rights of women like you, speaking out when you're being facing death threats from men who argue that trans rights are more important than women's rights. But there we are, founder of Let Women Speak, Kelly J. Keane. Thank you very much for that. I promise I'm going to let Tom Slater have his say on all of that coming up. I want to have your say as well on what is the government's agenda talking about banning X and controlling X? What are your thoughts on that? I also want to hear your thoughts on the Tory Chancellor, as was Nadhim Zahawi, defecting to reform. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for reform? 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
morning, welcome back to the show. It's coming up 3 minutes past 11. This is Talk the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or you can thank you very much indeed for joining me. Lots and lots to talk about. You should say running way over time all through the last hour because there's so many big stories to talk about. Don't forget, if you miss anything, you can go back to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to talk about Britain not having the cash to deliver on military ambitions. £28 billion shortfall. Money down the back of the sofa. If we drop net zero, we'd have that money. Just throwing that out there as an idea. Going to talk more about those Iranian protests continuing. Hundreds more, possibly thousands more killed by the Tehran regime. Is America going to act? That Jewish MP banned from visiting a school in his own constituency after a campaign of intimidation by the teachers who claim to be all pro-Palestinian. No, you're not. You're just anti-Semites. Just call yourselves what you are. We're also going to talk more about that Chinese embassy and the secret room beneath its London super embassy. And we're going to talk about a new TikTok account from the government, which is the latest brainwave to stop illegal migrants. It'll definitely work. 100% it will work to smash the gangs. I don't know why we didn't think of it before. Anyway, all of that coming up. Plenty more besides. Joining me for all the chat is editor of Spiked Online, Tom Slater. Morning.
Morning again.
We've been asking people to get in touch. A lot of people getting in touch about Nadeem Zahawi. We're going to be talking more about him. He defected to reform. I'm asking you, basically, you know, it's the most high-profile former Tory Chancellor, former Tory Chairman, defecting to reform. Big coup for Nigel Farage, he was claiming yesterday. But what's your reaction? Is it a good thing for reform or a bad thing? A lot of reform voters saying they're really unhappy about, you know, is reform now dumping ground for failed Tories? He was forced out. He was sacked. He was actually sacked for basically, you know, lying, not refusing to actually declare the fact that he was under investigation for not paying enough tax by HMRC when he was Chancellor. But a lot of you have been getting in touch saying you think it's a good thing. We need his experience in government, need his business, they say, for reform to do well. Love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Love to hear your thoughts also on the conversation we were just having with Kelly J. Keane about the UK preparing to ban X over those grok AI images being used to create images of women in bikinis, but including kids as well. Government says they're going to make that illegal. Elon Musk has said a move to ban the site would be fascist. Meanwhile, Ofcom, we discovered yesterday, launched an official investigation, and Starmer, in a stunning and brave move, hasn't posted on X for a few days, but he is on TikTok, which tells you everything, doesn't it? Tom Slater, I mean, just initial reaction to what Kelly J. Keane had said. She thinks, look, this isn't about protecting women. This is actually an agenda. The last government didn't like X very much either, and this government definitely doesn't, because it's seen as a right-wing social media. They want all social media to be left-wing, all views that aren't, you know, their views are obviously extreme and far right. Do you think there is a secret agenda?
I don't think it's that secret. I think it's pretty obvious where this has come from. We've talked about it earlier on the show. If your concern was sexual violence, then you'd be talking more about the grooming gangs. You would be talking about AI bikini pictures. If your worry is online grooming, then surely you would focus on the platforms like Snapchat, where the lion's share, it seems like, a particularly child grooming seems to take place. Ofcom haven't launched an investigation into them. And it's been obvious for some time now that this Labour government, but previous governments as well, have it in for X for precisely the reason that political elites have not particularly liked freedom of speech historically. It's because X is one of the biggest pro-free speech platforms that exists. Generally speaking, people are allowed to say what they want. And
I wish they weren't allowed to just go around calling people, you know, C word and the B word and every other word in between. It'd be quite nice. I mean, I can live with it.
Of course. And there is that, and there is the sort of question about how do you have a free speech platform that also is relatively civil, I suppose. But it's still, it's clear that the thing that they're upset about is not the abuse or the screaming. It's the fact that you now have ordinary people who not simply have the right to say what they want, but also have the means to say it on quite a big scale.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's happened. You think about so many of the scandals that have roiled this government in quite a short space of time. Grooming gangs, would that have exploded again without X? Almost certainly not.
100%.
The illegal migration issue has become central. I think
people
social media in
seeing
general,
the images,
X in particular,
share on all, and also seeing the all the stories being shared from local papers and others about that thing that never happens but keeps on happening, which is someone who's an asylum seeker living in a hostel getting arrested, charged, and or convicted for sexually abusing or raping women and girls. I mean, that thing that never happens. I don't think that would be be all over the mainstream, well,
Absolutely.
some of the mainstream media, certainly not all over the BBC or anything, is it? If it wasn't for it being all over X.
No, I think that's exactly true. And it's also obvious that the government have developed something akin to an obsession with Elon Musk. I mean, it is kind of mutual, and Elon Musk taken a slightly crankish turn of late. But they are basically
some of the things.
treating him.
Some of the things Elon Musk has said is outrageous.
Of
About,
course.
Ousting our government. Sod off.
Yeah.
Sod off, mate. This isn't your country. We'll deal with
And
things.
the balance there, I think, is you do not have to be a fan of this particularly erratic billionaire to recognise if you've got the government who have basically gone around and designated one of their most prominent critics as akin to a national security threat. I mean, there was that report the other week about the Home Office stepping up its monitoring of his tweets for fear of how they might contribute to social disorder and radicalisation.
Nonsense.
This is... Ultimately, the state has the power to censor in a way that even billionaires do not, unless they've own a social media platform.
But there was that argument before, I think certainly before lockdown, I think even possibly during lockdown, the argument was that the social media companies were so much more powerful than nations. And, basically Zuckerberg could do whatever the hell he wanted, and Twitter could do what the hell they wanted because they were bigger than countries. That a lot of those companies were richer than a lot of countries. That seems to be sort of rolling back. I've not got a problem with some. I think you're more of a free speech absolutist than I am. I've not really got a problem with there being some limits on what people can say. I don't think it should be like, when I'm accused of disinformation because I don't think, we should have vaccine passports and give them to, give vaccines for a disease that doesn't pretty much ever kill kids and force them to have a vaccine to go to school and be able to travel. No, that's not disinformation. That's frankly being a good parent and a campaigner for the right thing. But I do think there's the level of abuse. I mean, I think there've been more debates in Parliament about a Labour MP got some abuse on social media than there has been about, say, grooming gangs or about asylum seekers raping young women and young girls in this country. I mean, I think they need to get their priorities right. I mean, lots of these MPs should have a look at my social media feed for half an hour. And I've got to be honest with you, it's absolutely water off a duck's back to me. I think people should just, relax about it a bit. But it would be nice if it could be changed. But I don't know how you do that without stopping people being able to talk about the things they care about.
Yeah, and I actually think that some of the answers there could lie in what Elon Musk was talking about when he first bought Twitter, but it's kind of gone by the wayside, which is saying that, of course, everyone wants an element of content moderation, but they should do it themselves. It should be very easy, very intuitive, very straightforward to say, I want to be on social media because I want to promote my work or I want to look at what I'm interested in. I don't want it to be an easy route for people to bombard me with horrific images if they so choose. But the point is that that's not a decision which is being made by some faceless bureaucrat either in government or in a tech company. It's something that you do yourself, something that's
well, you used to be able to, because you could basically say, this is the feed I want to follow, and then I'm sorry, these algorithms default and they send you stuff that you even if you've blocked people. But there we are. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this. Do you think there is this sort of nefarious secret, as Tom says, not so secret attempt actually to censor what's going on at X because governments aren't in control of it, particularly a left-wing government? I have a funny feeling Nigel Farage would have a load of problems with X if he was in government. I mean, I think governments don't like being criticised. Well, but that's our job in the media. And it's also we hold you to account, and that's also what people do on social media. And again, as Kelly J. King was saying, I don't think we'd be knowing much about what was going on in Iran if it wasn't for social media. Certainly the last 2 weeks, literally barely touched by the BBC, despite having the entire department. Now, we weren't discussing it very much on this show at all either, very much in passing, because it was sort of not really, haven't got much information, don't really know what's going on, and there were so many other big pressing stories. We have Maduro and all of that, and there's only 3 hours, I'm on air every day. But the BBC hasn't got that excuse because they've got a whole massive website. They've got hundreds and hundreds of hours of different parts of the BBC output. Didn't really touch it, and it was only when it was all over X that actually the pressure was people were saying, why isn't the BBC discussing these protests? I mean, 5 people gather out, pro-Hamas people gather outside anywhere. They get a 4-hour coverage in every BBC show. And 6 items on the BBC website, but not hundreds of thousands, millions of Iranians.
No, I think that's exactly right. And the excuses that have been made by the BBC in particular for why there has been this lopsided coverage, this lack of coverage, I mean, it's getting absurd. I mean, it started off with where it's very difficult to deny and impossible to verify the information, and also to have anyone on the ground in Iran. That never stopped them with Gaza, where, of course, BBC trained journalists cannot get in. They were just quite happy to subcontract that to various quite openly pro-Hamas or certainly anti-Semitic people on the ground.
Yeah.
I think it's because they struggle. The kind of metropolitan bourgeois liberal left, whatever you want to call them, people who tend to work at the BBC, struggle to compute the Iran issue. It grates up against a few things that they hold kind of implicit in their heads. The idea that anything that's kind of in opposition to the West probably haven't got it all wrong. The idea that they're very nervous about criticising anything with Islamic in the title, to be perfectly frank.
Yeah.
So therefore the Islamic Republic of Iran mixes in with that. And also because of the fact that I think it's a story that they struggle to digest. It's not necessarily that it's kind of clear-cut agenda to silence
Islam
this.
Good. Young women saying, I want to be free.
Where
and not
on the
have to cover my
hierarchy
hair.
does this fit? I'm not sure. Let's just park it. I think that's kind of what happens.
That's absolutely, well, that's hence, the Greta Thunbergs and the Gary Linekers and all the Hollywood stars, I mean, it was amazing, actually, Golden Globes. There were no statements about Iran. But interestingly, there have been no statements about Gaza or anything. I don't, there's a rule at the Golden Globes, I don't know. I don't watch these things unless Ricky Gervais is hosting them, let's be honest. Even then, I only watches highlights. And no one does watch these things, interestingly. But then we see afterwards all these pictures, they've all got this little badge, which has basically got a bloody handprint. And that bloody handprint is basically in solidarity with the people of Gaza. No, that's not in solidarity with the people of Gaza. You'll know well what that bloody handprint is. It's basically a lynching of Jews, and these men literally tearing. They tore their bodies apart. They tore out their organs, held like their livers and stuff out the window with their red bloody hands. And when people have that red hand, you are basically celebrating the lynching of Jews.
It's incredible.
I mean, I think they were Israeli soldiers, but they're conscripted soldiers. I'm just saying. These people need a shake of the head. I really need to wobble their heads. Do you think that Donald Trump should do something? He's announced 25% tariffs on countries doing business with Iran. He said very clearly, a week or so ago, that America would act. They would not stand by. And warning the Ayatollah. If they start, shooting people. And then we had the Mike Huckabee, who's the US ambassador to Israel, and he was in an interview yesterday talking about how, well, they're keeping options open, but, if there were sort of, mass killings, well, by all accounts from the people, the word that's, as much as it's coming out with that internet ban and telephone and all communication ban in Iran, we're looking at probably in the many thousands now. Well, certainly, thousands of people being executed. Lots of them young people just wanting the most basic human rights. How many should die before Donald Trump acts? Because a lot of them will have come out having been told, don't worry, America's going to step in. I'm not quite sure what America can do. Do you think they should do something?
Well, this is the difficulty, isn't it? And we've seen it repeated many times over recent decades when you have a popular uprising of one kind or another, and there is this appeal which will go out to the West, but America really in particular, to kind of row in behind them, to back them up. In other parts of the world, that hasn't always worked out particularly well, and I think that's part of the reticence, that's part of the non-interventionist strain within the Trump administration. At the same time, I think he's also quite keen to put Iran on notice, and so how much of this is just trying to send a message and how much of this is actually we're going to come in if necessary is not entirely obvious, not least because Trump is very erratic on these questions himself. I mean, there's a tendency
he might get bored with Iran,
and even with Syria, I mean, he eventually kind of bombed an airbase there, but only after his daughter had shown him pictures of emaciated children. He's actually a lot more instinctual and reactive than sometimes a lot of the people who like to read a lot of ideology into him. So it's very difficult to say. It's also very difficult to say what would be effective. You really don't want to be in a situation where you're dropping bombs and intervening purely as a kind of PR gesture or to demonstrate that you're serious. So all bets are off.
But it is really interesting because in terms of the economic sort of strangulation of the country, and again, it's amazing. The BBC again, absolutely obsessed. It's all about economics. No, that's the catalyst. The spiralling inflation, the exchange rate. Basically, you can't. If you're a shop, it's not even just about people going to the shop. Shopkeepers can't have any stock because you can't buy anything because you can't sell it at a price that you've paid for it. I mean, just money has become almost meaningless. Similar to Venezuela and Zimbabwe. And part of that is down to these sanctions, but largely it's down to having a completely corrupt, incompetent, theocratic regime. I'm sorry, that's the main reason you've got those shortages, but it has been exacerbated. I mean, if he does does exacerbate it by basically trying to sort of cut off Iran even more. I mean, you know, that's the point when people are a bit hungry, they don't tend to revolt. But the evidence is very clear: when they're hungry enough, they will rise up, and that's what people are doing. But it's very, very clear that the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, they are very much. I mean, they are an army. They are on the streets. They've replaced the local, you know, police in basically in the clamping down on these protests, and they are being absolutely ruthless. And the same as with China, like Tiananmen Square. You know, the Chinese, they brought in army, you know, from elsewhere, so that people weren't firing on their own sort of local people. And but there's quite clear the IRGC have no qualms at all about it. There's a lot of talk. They're firing in the street indiscriminately. They're kettling people into alleyways and then tear gassing them and then firing on them. People are being arrested. They're now going in and executing people who've been arrested. No trial, no system of judicial investigation at all, and people are scared. And I would say you're going to have to be pretty bloody brave to go out on the streets of Iran now.
No, absolutely. I mean, and it's horrific, and it's happening under cover of digital darkness since the internet was cut off at the tail end of last week. You also wonder, though, in the longer term, how the kind of mark that protests like this make, because you have seen this kind of build up over recent years. Obviously, you know, way back in the tail end of the 2000s, you had the sort of green movement, then you had more recently obviously the women life freedom movement and protests in response to the murder in police custody of Mahsa Amini for not wearing a hijab properly. Now these protests they've been kind of building in number, in how broad across society, and also the severity therefore of the crackdown, which the mullahs judged to be necessary in order to keep a lid on this. I think this is nevertheless, as horrific as the scenes that we'll see in the coming days I'm sure will be, I think it's also a sign of a regime whose day is done. I mean, how can they possibly continue to maintain order after having massacred so many people? How can they possibly command any kind of respect amongst the sections of society who did previously, you know, still broadly speaking, want the regime to continue after their full brutality has been shown? So it's one of those things where in the longer term, I think this is a sign of a regime that is so vicious precisely because it's kind of brittle and desperate. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, it is extraordinary. Again, it's 85 million people. This is a huge country, and although sort of quite poverty-stricken now, they have a huge military. And again, you have got that theocratic, that absolute, you know, zeal of the extremist religious, you know, Islamist viewpoint, which we also see apparently in our schools with a Jewish MP, a Labour MP in Bristol, Damien Egan, having a school visit to a school in his own constituency banned after a campaign by pro-Palestinian teachers. Parents saying they would move their kids out of school for the day. Well, fine, don't bring your kid in for the day, but we'll know you're a bigot because he's pro-Israel. These things keep happening. We had the protests outside the Israeli Israeli restaurant, in Notting Hill in London a couple of days ago. We just got non-stop attacks on Jewish businesses, on individual Jewish people. We've got protests in the streets. There's no sign of it going away anywhere. What is being done? Because a little bit of, we should do something about this, and isn't this terrible from the government? It doesn't seem to me to be enough. We need the people who make these threats to be. I'm sorry. I mean, a lot of these people. I'm wondering, got dual nationality? I want you out of the country. Sorry, I've got none. A lot of these people who are British. I'm sorry, if you're British and you're making threats like that, you really should be arrested. If you're saying you won't keep the peace, if you're threatening physical violence and physical damage to the school or to a human being because someone has views that you don't like and they're going to come and visit school, you need to have your collar felt by the police. And yet, as we've seen with the Maccabi Tel Aviv case in Birmingham, the police are actually not just turning a blind eye, they are helping the Islamist extremists. We have a serious problem in our schools, we have a serious problems in our government, serious problems in our civil service, in our health service, in our schools. We've got an issue and we need to face up to it, and we need to not just face up to it, we need to get it out.
No, I completely agree. And the problem here is that it's not just cowardice, it's not just the police or any other institution who are bending over backwards to indulge anti-Semitism dressed up as anti-Zionism or, you know, basically Islamic sectarianism posing as something which is just about the children of Gaza. The problem is that these people have been sort of welcomed in. I don't just mean into the country, I mean in terms of our institutions. The Maccabi Tel Aviv scandal it was eye-opening because of the fact that it wasn't just that you had the police chiefs there who were afraid of what Muslim youths might do on the night of that football match. It's because they were being advised by these supposed community leaders who were saying that under no circumstances should this suspicious Israeli Jewish team and their supporters be allowed anywhere near Aston.
Don't want Jews in Birmingham.
We've now got Islamic sectarian MPs in that part of the world.
Yep.
This is how deep the rot runs now. The whole multicultural state is the problem. It treats these people as representatives of their quote-unquote community who need to be...
Well, the thing is, you know what? People voted for them.
Yeah. No, I suppose in terms of... And this is the problem about most cultures. It encourages sectarianism.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing it bear its poison fruit and everyone's acting surprised by it. There's also an element to this, though, which is just purely a case of, are we really going to have a situation where public order in this country is dictated by certain groups who are willing to kick off and the police being scared to clamp down on them for fear of being called racist or Islamophobic?
So basically, whoever's the most threatening
is that how it
wins.
Works now?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Yes, that is how it works now. Yes.
And yet how telling that the police or all of our institutions are terrified of being called is racist or Islamophobic, but the anti-Semitism allegations seem to bounce off of them.
It's just it, sure. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all the stories we're talking about and anything else. Get in touch, 0344 499 1000. I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything. Right now, though, it's time to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning a trip of a lifetime to San Francisco. Talk is giving away flights, a 3-night stay at a 4-star Intercontinental Hotel, £2,500 spending money and, rather crucially, tickets to the Super Bowl. To top it all off, listen to find out how you can enter.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
You do not want to miss out on that trip of a lifetime. Very good luck to you. 11:24 is the time to take a break. Then we'll get to your calls. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:27 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. Ashley's on the line. He's in London. Ashley, you want to talk about the extraordinary situation of the Jewish MP Damien Egan being banned from a school visit in his Bristol constituency. Why? Because he's a Zionist Jew.
Morning, Julia.
Morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's every day that goes by doesn't surprise me. I mean, us Jewish community, we can see, and I'm sure like you can, is that there's been this influence into this country for many years. Money Qatari, money into the university, reinstating people to a narrative.
Oh, Ashley, this is a really bad fuzzy line. Can you do the usual high-tech thing of stepping to one side? I'm amazed how often it works.
Is that better?
Not much. Can I go to another call and then I will come back to you. I promise you. We'll try and get on a better line. But I really want to get back to that call. Tim is in Worthing, and Tim, you want to talk about Nadeem Zahawi, who haven't touched on this half hour yet, defecting to Reform from the Tory party. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, hi Julia.
Hello.
I actually think it's a bad thing. I am a Reform member.
Yeah.
I think Reform was our only hope for the future of all the other things we've discussed this morning.
Yeah.
Life is depressing at the moment for me. At my age, I've worked hard all my life, and I've seen my country end up where we are today.
Yeah.
I think Nadeem Zahawi, bad choice. If it's true about the stories about him wanting a
peerage from the Tories,
didn't get it, and now he's come to Reform. I'd just like to remind people, I was listening to Dr. Claire Craig earlier this morning, and she pointed out it was Zahawi who was behind the no jab, no job kind of policy thinking. I don't think it was him originally, because he was part of the vaccine rollout, and look, at the end of the day, I did support the vaccine at the time. We were told a lot of lies about it, never vaccine passports. And he did say that it wouldn't be the vaccine passport, and then he reneged on it. But that wasn't him pushing it, although he didn't stand up against it. And I think that is different. You have to be quite careful with Claire Craig, because unfortunately she does sometimes struggle with some facts, I have found over the years. Oh, does she?
Yes.
Oh, interesting
Yes.
to hear you
Hi,
say
Claire,
that.
if you're going to see this clip. But yes.
Well, then I'll have to retract that little part of it. But
he didn't stand up on it. And people like Lord Frost, who was in the cabinet, he said, "That's it. No, it's a step too far. I'm resigning from the government."
Yeah. And it was interesting to see Nadeem Zahawi at the press conference recently. Just came across as a little bit arrogant in the way he dealt with one journalist when he asked a question.
Yeah.
I would have rather have seen. I'm sure there's some better backbench MPs in the Tory party who sit on the right side of the party.
Who may, well, of course, they've still got a job with it. Now, again, Nadeem Zahawi is a self-made millionaire. He doesn't need a job. He's no longer an MP. Yeah. He may well want a peerage from, everyone's obsessed with getting peerages these days, it has to be said. But what about the fact that he has got experience of government at the highest level? He does know how things work in government. He's very successful businessman, and he's got a lot of nous. He's a very, very sharp cookie, is Nadeem. Do you think that would be useful for Reform? So even if you don't trust him personally, actually he's got something to offer.
Well, yes, he has got something to offer. Absolutely, and I'm sure that's why Nigel has brought him across. Yeah, it is difficult for Nigel Farage. He's having to tread a fine line between, kind of maintaining this momentum forward for Reform.
Yeah.
I would personally like to see much more cooperation between the Tories and Reform.
Interesting.
Actually, because, there's some good people, there's good people on all sides of the house.
I'm with you. Listen, I'm absolutely convinced that they will absolutely work together at the end when we're seeing where the polls are at the end, and certainly after an election. No one says they'll go into coalition. They will go into coalition if they need to form a government. I've got no doubt at all about that. Tim, great call. Thank you very much. I think you're expressing the views of a lot of Reform Party members there. Let's go back to Ashley. I think we've got you on a better line in London, talking about the just outrageous treatment of that Jewish MP not able to go to that school in Bristol. What do you want to say, Ashley?
Yeah, morning. Sorry
That's
about that.
Better.
Hopefully better now. What I was going to say is that there's been an influence over the last 10, 20 years of Qatari money into our education system, which is, we as Jews, we can't do or say anything now. We are alienated. This chap that couldn't go into the school, this MP, he has an opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm lost as to where you can't have differences of opinions. Yeah. And that people should be taught that there are differences of opinions in different scenarios, and actually there's always two sides to stories, which means you educate people, and then people can make their own decisions, right? What these... we talk about people coming into this country. When I get very angry, I can kind of understand people coming into this country having their own agenda. what I struggle greatly is your typical British person that's probably, or Welsh person in this case, in the school, who's a teacher who wants to put a keffiyeh on and stand there and protesting for Palestine in front of children to teach them that this is the right way, and that person, that Jew over there, is a liar, telling lies. He supports genocide. He supports. You can't, and this is what we're coming up against. And unless the government crack down on this to say to these unions and say, guys, you have got to stop this now, or we're going to deal with it. In the next generation, I mean, us Jews, it's hard enough as it is. Like in 10 years' time, I worry genuinely about my kids and, please God, my grandkids.
I do.
What are they going to...
I don't think it's even 10 years' time. I think this is happening at such a rate and people are feeling they can get away with it. Why are they feeling that? Because they are getting away with it and the police are letting them getting away with it and the politicians are as well. I think it's absolutely terrifying. We are in the 1930s. We ain't in the early 1930s right now. We're in the late 1930s, both internationally and domestically, and we need to deal with it. And here's the thing. All these people pushing for... And it's going to happen the next general election, 16-year-olds to have the vote. Do you want a 16-year-old who's been educated in that school to have the vote and be basically who's just being told what they've been told? I don't want to know. I don't know what my teachers' political views are. My kid. I don't want to know what my doctor's political views are. My dentist's political views. I don't want to know my tube driver's political views are. It's utterly irrelevant unless they're engaging in social, debate on social media. That's fine. If you're in your workplace, if your job is not to give your political opinions, then shut the hell up, would be my view. I think it's just extraordinary. Ashley, thank you for that. I'm really glad we got you back on. 11:34 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Going to talk to the brilliant Andrew Fox about all things domestic and international in relation to, our military, our values and what on earth is going on in the world. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:37 is the time. Let's talk to Andrew Fox. He's defence and Middle East expert. He's also a research fellow at Henry Jackson Society. A very good morning to you, Andrew.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you. Thank you very well indeed. Thank you so much for joining us. Can I just ask you, and I wasn't going to talk to you about this originally, but can I just ask you about Iran right now? Because Donald Trump said that he was going to, take action. He wasn't going to allow the Tehran regime to basically just, randomly just shoot, people, protesters on the streets. They are doing that. We think now in the thousands have now been killed. People are being executed who've been arrested. And we haven't seen any action yet other than this sort of 25% tariff on countries doing business with Iran, which doesn't really touch the size, does it? Should Donald Trump act, and if so, what should he do?
Well, I think the most important thing is that Donald Trump shouldn't make promises that he's not going to keep.
Exactly.
people undoubtedly went out on the streets in greater numbers because Mr. Trump said that the US Air Force was locked and loaded, and that he would bring hell on the Iranian regime if they opened fire on civilians. And nearly a week later, we now see as many as 12,000 dead, between 7,000 and 12,000 are the numbers. Obviously, it's very difficult to track casualties in a war zone unless you're Hamas. But the fact is that people are now dying. Mr. Trump made promises that he simply hasn't kept. And even if he does keep them now, it's probably too late. The other part of this answer, I think, needs to be acknowledging the challenge of actually where to strike and at what scale to strike. The Republican Guard in Iran are very spread out. They've got 11 different headquarters and then a bunch of subordinate headquarters beneath them. Where you actually strike and where airstrikes will have the most effect is very difficult. Yeah. But Mr. Trump considered none of this before he made his promises. So at the moment, it's not looking like America is being a particularly reliable partner.
Well, indeed, this thing in the Middle East, if you're going to make the threats, you've got to back them up. We saw what happened to America's power and to America's reputation after Obama said, my red line, if Assad uses chemical weapons on the Syrians, this is a red line in the sand. Well, he did, and he did absolutely nothing. And it really undermines American and I think Western authority if they make threats and then don't do anything about it.
Yeah, I fully agree. And, there is a strategic balance to make here and there's important military decisions to make. But it really doesn't help to have a president who just shoots from the hip like that and who seems to be making it up as he goes along at the moment. First of all, we're talking about airstrikes, then we're talking about tariffs. We understand that J.D. Vance, the vice president, is asking about, renegotiating nuclear deals and such like. None of this is accountability for thousands of people who've been mowed down using automatic weapons by the Republican Guard and the besieged militias.
It's absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? Let's talk about our own military here, because lots of talk about whether we should get involved, whether it's in dealing with, the Russian sort of shadow fleet of tankers carrying oil. Of course, there's that axis of evil, Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, North Korea and all that, and whether or not we should possibly get involved in helping to secure Greenland or indeed boots on the ground in Ukraine. I mean, goodness me, we're going to be everywhere all over the globe, are we not? And yet, yesterday we had Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton. He is the Chief of the Defence Staff. He's the head of the armed forces in this country. He was giving evidence to the Home Affairs, the Defence Apologies, the Defence Select Committee, and he basically said Britain doesn't have enough money for our defence plans. We don't really, it would appear, actually have any proper strategic defence plans anyway, and basically we've got a 28 billion shortfall. Slight problem there, no?
Yeah, it's not looking great. And, let's talk about numbers. The British Army, for example, is 69,000 people on paper. For context, the Israeli army mobilised 360,000 troops to go into Gaza, which is obviously a tiny area compared to what we're talking about in Eastern Europe. If we break that 69,000 down, even if we include the reserves, the army reserves, we have 23,000 combat soldiers in the British Army. A tiny amount. And every number that Mr. Starmer throws out, or Sir Keir, I should say, every number he throws out, you have to double that, because if you're going to put an enduring commitment on the ground, you need to have another commitment behind them to come in and replace them in due course. Yeah. So if you commit 3,000 troops, you actually need 6,000 as a minimum. So if we look at what Mr. Starmer was talking about in Ukraine and Greenland, that's basically our entire deployable land force committed to 2 enduring ground holding operations, which really is not sustainable at all. The British Army is already burning red hot. And when I speak to my former officer cadets from when I was an instructor at Sandhurst, and bearing in mind that I commissioned into the Afghanistan-Iraq era and we were very busy, compared to them, these guys are burning red hot. Yeah. They are so busy right now. They are already overcommitted. And then to try and put these 2 enduring commitments on top of that just is simply not sustainable as things stand.
And this thing, we're talking the talk and we want to be a big player. And, people say, Keir Starmer, are you going to get involved in this? Is Britain going to get involved in that? And there are some things I think we should be willing to get involved in, including boots on the ground, only in peacetime, if their peace deal was agreed in Ukraine to protecting Europe's borders, as far as I'm concerned. But the reality is, we talk the talk, but we can't walk the walk. I mean, there's lots of evidence that we couldn't really protect ourselves in the event of invasion, let alone any other country.
Yeah, it's challenging. And then, there's the old Roosevelt saying that you should walk softly and carry a big stick. We're walking loudly and carrying a twig. It's not, it's simply, compared to what the government is saying they want to try and achieve, and where we are now, there is a gulf between the two. And what we need is massive defence investment, and not in the 2030s sometime.
Well, this is
we need
it
now.
I mean, that's something Nigel Farage has said that they would do, that they would want to beef up the defence expenditure. He wrote a piece in the Sunday papers talking about how, we are pygmies on the world stage right now. And actually, there's 3%. Again, I don't think 3% touches the side of the need right now anyway, but we're at 2.3% at the moment. But 3% by some mythical mid-30s period. We need to be at that today, right now, and we need to stop the whole accounting nonsense of money that's going to go to the Chagos Islands, to Mauritius for handing them. I still can't work out why we're paying them for the Chagos Islands, and money for veterans and things. The only money we should count as defence should be money that actually helps us defend our nation. That's the only thing that should count, and we are well below that.
We are, and if we look at the sleight of hand George Osborne played when he was bringing in his austerity budget, there was, yes, we kept at 2% GDP, but that's only after huge cuts and incorporating the nuclear budget into the defence budget, which had never was before. Yeah. And pensions were also brought into the defence budget. That kept us at 2%. In real terms, we were way below that with significant cuts. Yeah. And there's no quick fix, unfortunately. You can't just magic tanks out of nowhere. Yeah. It's taken us nearly, 10 years to procure the Ajax tank, which is completely unfit for purpose.
Brilliant.
That's the procurement timeline.
Is there an argument also, can we stop trying to buy things, we're going to have something completely different? Can we buy stuff off the shelf that we know already works?
Potentially. I mean, it does create a reliance on America, which is looking kind of
well, then maybe we should have some factories here and make some stuff here then.
Like we used to. I mean, that would be the correct answer. But, if we look at Poland, they've spent a huge proportion of GDP on defence compared to us, and they now have probably the most preeminent army in Europe. Yeah. And it turns out that having Russia on your border focuses the mind somewhat. Yeah. So it's achievable. It just needs the political will and the money to do it.
Can I ask you about something else, more domestic affairs than international and defence affairs? Because you've been very prominent on the issue of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fan ban last November, that match against Aston Villa in Birmingham. So much more has emerged, and we're expecting a call this week from the Home Affairs Select Committee, cross-party committee, after taking evidence couple of times from Craig Guildford, the West Midlands Chief Constable, and others, basically say he's got to go because this guy has repeatedly lied, and then lied about the lying and the cover-up about why they decided to ban fans. It is now beyond any doubt of anybody who's paying any attention that the Birmingham police banned Israeli Jewish fans from attending because basically local Islamist extremists said, we're going to create violence on the streets if you don't ban them, and you're going to do our bidding. That is quite clearly now what happened, and then they lied about it. What do we do about that?
Yeah, and of course they lied and concealed the threat. They misdirected as to where the actual threat of violence was on the night.
And who was likely to be the victim?
Yeah, who was the victim, and also they used evidence that we know came from the Hind Rajab Foundation, which has clear links to Hezbollah. This is a truly sordid tale that we've uncovered here, and from my perspective, there needs to be sackings. There has to be some accountability for this, and as Nick Timothy has said repeatedly, and I praise Nick for the work he's done on this. He and Lord Ian Austin really have led the charge. Who runs Britain? Yeah. Who runs Britain? Who runs our communities? Are our police forces policing without fear or favour? Or are they kowtowing to extremist minorities? And in the case of West Midlands Police and Aston Villa, it certainly looks like the latter.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew Fox, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much, Defence Middle East expert there, Andrew Fox. Tom Slater, listening to all of that, can we come back to the defence issue? And he's like, because again, our prime ministers across the board, and Boris Johnson did this, he was leading the way on Ukraine. I mean, everyone, they love talking the talk, and prime ministers of every political hue love pouncing around on the world stage and those red carpets and getting out of helicopters and talking military people. And they all sort of pick themselves up a little bit taller, and they start being all the bravado. But at the end of the day, we can't defend ourselves. We are not spending enough and doing enough and getting enough hardware and training enough men and women to fight to defend our own country, let alone basically try and put our weight around on the rest of the world. What should we do about that? That
is the uncomfortable truth under all of our kind of foreign policy pronouncements that we hear from Downing Street. They can go and team up with Emmanuel Macron and say that we are going to be this coalition of the willing to support Ukraine. the British Armed Forces is basically 6 blokes and a packet of quavers at this point. Everyone knows that. The Russians know that. The Ukrainians know that, I dare say. So it's one of those things where the rhetoric never really actually matches up to the actual commitment. And I think kind of regardless of whether or not you think the UK should be involved in other parts of the world or not, it's clear that just national defence has been something that's been allowed to wither on the vine. And kind of, funnily enough, it's also been kind of part and parcel of our membership of NATO as well. It's kind of infantilised a lot of Western European nations who, because the prospect of conflict, particularly on their own turf, has seemed such a distant prospect.
No, but also quite happy not to spend money on defence and let America do it, and then complain when America say, actually, we think you should defend yourselves as well.
Exactly. It's one of those things where Trump has been very useful insofar as kind of just making states recognise that they cannot just carry on like this forever. Absolutely,
absolutely. Thank you so much, Tom Slater. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. 0344 499 1000. Don't forget to get to more of your calls in the next half hour. Up next, delighted to get the Centre for Migration Control's Robert Bates in the studio. He's going to talk about how we are going to solve the illegal immigration and the small boats crisis. The government has finally got a proper plan. It involves a new TikTok account. So this one is definitely going to work. This is Talk.
The UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:52 is the time. Tom Slater is still with me in the studio. Robert Bates has joined us now as Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. A very good morning to you.
And to you. Morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. You're here to tell us how we are going to stop the boats, we are going to smash the gangs. It's all sorted now because Keir Starmer has come up with a brilliant new wheeze, and this is how we're going to do it. There's a new TikTok account on border security, and that is going to basically stop all the boats. I know there may be some cynics among my audience who might think that actually a TikTok account isn't going to be enough to stop the tens of thousands of young men coming over on those boats every day. Do you think it'll work, Robert?
No, I don't at all. He seems to be obsessed.
No, we'll move on. No.
He seems to be obsessed with TikTok at the moment, Keir Starmer does.
Like
of course,
it.
he set up his personal
Loves
one,
TikTok.
and this TikTok account. I mean, it's been launched for a day or so. 324 followers, so clearly reaching a wide audience already. But I just think these individuals, are we seriously thinking they're going to have spent thousands of pounds getting to northern France? They're going to be sitting there in a tent, scrolling on their phones, and they're going to see one video cobbled together by the Home Office and go, no, you're right, absolutely not worth my effort making the crossing.
And the idea is this was it called UK Border Control or something of that ilk? And basically, I mean, don't bother looking for it, people, seriously.
It's hard to find, it's so small.
But basically, and you should be on TikTok anyway. Although I'm very big on TikTok. My
I can well imagine.
Apparently. Don't approve of it, though. It's owned by the Chinese. No one should be on it. Anyway, but basically, they're showing a load of circumstances where, oh, you naughty illegal migrants, you're being nabbed by the authorities.
Yeah.
But given that we know, people are being nabbed by the authorities, but then they're being put up in a hotel or a hostel, and they're given a load of money, and they're basically allowed to stay here, and a handful might get deported on a BA flight over to Paris, and then they could just come back again. I mean, I'm not entirely sure why they think that would actually put people off.
No, and that's exactly it. For every one clip they maybe do see from the Home Office, they'll be seeing 20, 30 from their friends, from people they know that are already in Britain, of them having the time of their lives, having parties, playing beer pong in hotels at our expense, all that kind of stuff, fireworks off. So what the Home Office is really trying to compete against is these well-established communication networks that already do exist, not just on TikTok, of course, but on Signal, WhatsApp, and so forth. No,
but what they're trying to compete with is the facts. And the fact is that if you can get here...
Yeah, well, exactly.
No, if you can get in a boat, because you'll then be rescued by the RNLI or the Navy, you're going to be able to stay. Because statistically, massively, that is the case.
Well, and of course, people will be aware of this. Every conversation we do have in the UK about, the failure of the one-in, one-out deal, the failure of Keir Starmer to get returns hubs in the Balkans, all of this stuff does filter through to those individuals. And they're looking at the UK. And we are now pretty much an outlier in Europe in just terms of how soft we are with this problem. When you look at sort of what those countries on the eastern front of Europe are doing with the really, really hard measures, barbed wire fences, guards, and you compare that with us.
Wait, border security?
Well,
why didn't we think of that?
We've given up on the concept. We have seemingly given up on the concept. They're underfunded, under-resourced.
Like a load of water and some cliffs even. You'd think, wouldn't you?
Well, you would hope so. It is a natural barrier, and it has been very, very successful over the last 1,000 or so years of keeping people out of the country. But it seems to be, the modern state, the most sophisticated state this country's allegedly ever seen, is unable to keep people on small dinghies from coming out of the country.
I love that. We're going to take on this sort of shadow Russian oil tanker fleet, but with the SBS. Could we send the SBS over to deal with these guys in these dinghies? It is extraordinary. I mean, it's laughable. All of these measures, the one-in, one-out little exchange programme was laughable. Everything's been laughable. And we know yet again, the government they always try and cover some big news, but their latest is more than 12,000 illegal workers have been detained in Labour's first 18 months. And they go, isn't this brilliant? Well, just 12,000. I mean, I'm sorry, that's a tiny fraction of the people who are here. There's probably more than 1 million plus people here. I mean, I think the million plus, which is a conservative figure with a small c, but actually only 1 in 7 actually get deported. So someone reports their local nail bar or their local, hand washing car wash or something, and then they go in, maybe the police, and then nothing happens? What happens?
So I think basically we've got two things here. First of all, actually, they've taken a lot of the low-hanging fruit with the arrest. They've gone after intelligence that was probably already known to the Home Office or Immigration Enforcement for quite a while. And you look at some of the people that they have been arresting, they are sort of, quite easy pickings, really, for lack of a better
Well, they're
word.
not. They're hiding in plain sight on high streets, for goodness sake.
Well, exactly. And everyone can see it. Everyone knows it's going on. And, the fact that they've only managed 12,000, which, as you say, is a fraction of the numbers that are here illegally. But then, more concerningly, is the fact that they have been able to actually deport so few. And you look over the last few years, and in their own figures that they published today, they show that actually the percentage of people who are arrested that then actually end up deported being 12% under Labour. It was 25% in 2019. So that number has fallen off a cliff under this government.
And why?
So once an individual's in detention facilities, they have all kinds of rights for judicial reviews of their potential deportation. They have round-the-clock, taxpayer-funded sort of legal advice and welfare support and stuff, and that just allows them to gum up their removal. And if they're in a detention facility for a certain period of time, then actually we basically just have to throw our hands up and go, you know what, we can't really get rid of you, so out you go again. And this is the real problem.
Sorry, I'm just going to bang my head on the table a few times.
It's hopeless. Honestly, it makes you want to weep.
Even though I know this stuff, having someone to spell it all out loud every time is still...
Well, I wish I didn't have to, because honestly, it would make your eyes bleed if you really knew how incompetent the detention facilities are. We've only got, for instance, 2,000 beds for deportation centres, and you kind of think, well, actually, if we're going to be doing a serious conversation about removing individuals...
Well, that would be fine if they were in there for 2 days before their flight. I mean, it's almost like we can't get a flight out. We can't get... But a lot of these countries, they won't accept them, but we are starting to do sort of like, we're not going to let you have any visas if you don't take some of your wrongdoings back.
On tiny countries, of course, a very, very fraction of the country. I mean, the number of visas we award to sort of Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola and Namibia is a fraction, and they're not the large problems when it comes to illegal migration either. When we start sort of having frank and tough conversations with those that we do know are driving covering up illegal migration.
Yeah. France. Well, France
as well.
Over.
Yeah. I'm well for no visas for the French people, to be honest.
There's a government policy we can all get behind. No, I've got family members who are French. Tom Slater, listening to all of this.
Well, it's just of a piece with what I call migration control theatre, which they seem to be engaged in. They can pluck some numbers which sound very impressive. I mean, the arrest figures, they said it was the highest number on record since 2019 when records began. So I think any time you see that, you should probably dispense with that. It's clear to anyone who's looked at this issue for about 5 minutes that the problem here is the law and political will. You need to get us out of the
political
ECHR.
will to change the law.
You need to repeal the Human Rights Act. You need to take us out of
deal with it. Again,
various UN
put me in charge. I will deal with it. I promise you.
It's not a PR exercise or a TikTok.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Obviously.
Wanting border controls is not a far-right viewpoint. Robert Bates, you do such fantastic stuff on this. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Goodness me, it's a long time since someone's maybe banged my head on the table. Thank you very much, Robert Bates, Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. More from Tom Slater coming up. Lots more top guests. Going to be talking to Sir Ian Duncan Smith, among those, in the next hour or so. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. It's 2 minutes past at midday. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Lots of common sense from our last guest. Hope he'll come back on again very soon. Lots of common sense from my guest who joins me every Tuesday, I should say, editor of Spiked Online, Tom Slater. Thank you very much for staying with us for the next hour. I'm with you all the way until 1 o'clock, along with Tom. And whether you are listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you as well for joining us. Thank you also for getting in touch with us. Lots of calls coming in and lots of the big topics. A lot of it. A lot of stories around home and abroad. Do give us a call on 0344 499 1000 to have your say on anything. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Also, you can get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. I'm particularly asking you to get in touch about Nadeem Zahawi and his defected to reform. He's a former Tory Chancellor, former Tory Party Chairman, knows how government is run, big business mind, self-made millionaire. Lost his last job in government under a questionable circumstances over an investigation by HMRC into his business tax affairs. But, is that a good thing for reform or not? Interestingly, very, very different views coming in from people who are reform supporters this morning. I'd love to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Also want to hear your thoughts about whether or not Britain, America, whoever should be acting to help the Iranian protests. Hundreds more have been killed by the Tehran regime. Those are the ones we know for sure about. Body bags have been seen. It is believed to be in the thousands that people have been killed now. Also, that Jewish MP who was banned from visiting a school after a campaign of intimidation by pro-Palestine teachers. We're also going to be talking more about the US attacking Keir Starmer, this time over his refusal to ban cousin marriage, which absolutely, without doubt, should be banned tomorrow. Also, we're going to be talking about the BBC. Today, they're in court in Florida, hoping to throw out Donald Trump's, they often talk about it being a $5 billion. It's actually in total a $10 billion defamation suit over that edited Panorama programme involving, splicing together two parts of his speech to completely and utterly basically twist what he had to say on the day of those January 6 riots. But will they be able to throw that lawsuit out of court? Well, we'll talk about that a little later with a top lawyer. Lots more to talk about today. I say do get in touch on all the different topics, but I mean, Tom Slater, just briefly though, first, it is extraordinary, isn't it, how much we keep coming back to defence stories, we keep coming lack of ability to defend ourselves, we keep coming back to censorship stories, talk about possible censorship, and we keep coming back to anti-Semitism stories, and we keep coming back to unlimited illegal immigration stories. I mean, these seem to be the theme of the last year in terms of the stories again and again and again, and these all seem to be topics which this government, these authorities seem to be utterly incapable and unwilling to do anything about.
And I think that's very well put, and it underlines the problem for this government, which is that they keep trying to kind of set a different sort of narrative, that brighter times are ahead, that we're about to turn the corner, trying to make it about the cost of living, even though on that front things are still not terribly bright for most people.
I think you'll find when the Prime Minister, even when he's abroad, his entire concern is about the British cost of living.
Exactly. That's what he said. About those frozen rail fares the entire time whilst he's at some sort of diplomatic shindig. But no, it's this is the issue. The big questions which confront us, politically speaking, at the moment are ones that the Labour Party either doesn't have an answer for or has a terrible answer for. So the issue of illegal migration, this is something which has roiled the country, which has roiled the population, particularly over the course of the past 18 months. And yet, what do they have? A TikTok account, some PR speeches where they try and sound quite punchy about this and apologise for doing so later. It's obviously not going to work. And then you look at the kind of broader questions around the culture war, which is still haven't gone away as much as Keir Starmer hoped that they would. And Labour at best looks limp, and at worst clearly still pushing identity politics, gender politics, censorship, what have you. So it's a reminder that this government is it's kind of come around at precisely the wrong time. To the extent it ever could enjoy some level of greater popular support, I'm not sure, because it's just so useless on a kind of fundamental level. But it does not have the measure of the times at all. On any of these questions.
No, exactly. They are not the people to take us through these difficult times, certainly not. Well, one person I know would definitely agree with you on a lot of that is Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, my next MP, Conservative MP, former Conservative Party leader, who joins us once again to give his tuppence worth on all of the big stories at home and abroad. Good afternoon to you, Sir Ian.
Julia, good afternoon.
Thank you very much for joining us. Where do we even start? Should we start abroad, first of all? You've written a piece for The Telegraph about how Britain must do more to take on the Ayatollah's enforcers with this crackdown on these Iranian protesters. What role should Britain play? What role should America and Britain both play, or any other country? And what role can we play when, by the way, we've just been told by the head of the armed forces we basically don't really have any defences?
Well, there is one thing that we can do straight away, which would protect us at home, as well as protect people abroad, and that is to get the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and prescribe it.
Why? What difference would that make?
Makes a huge difference. Prescribing an organisation like that, which is active here, by the way, in the UK, would mean that it would be illegal to be involved or to be a member of that and their prosecutable offence. Secondly, you can seize their assets almost immediately, and that means you can go after them anywhere else that you find them in the world. Now, America has already prescribed them. believe it or not, Sweden prescribed them, and Australia is in the process of prescribing them. And it makes sense. It gives you much greater power and it gives you protection. Lots of Iranian dissidents who are here in the UK are pursued by them, they're spied on by them, they're threatened by them regularly. And we've done absolutely nothing at all about it. Oh, well, we've introduced sanctions against individuals or we've banned certain people. That's not the same thing. Yeah. Without the IRGC, the Iranian Ayatollahs cannot rule Iran. They're the ones doing all the killings, by the way, right now. They go in hard, they shoot, they kill, they torture. They've done it all the time. And what we get from the Foreign Office, the usual guff nonsense. Oh, well, if we do this, we'll lose diplomatic influence. In what world did they ever have diplomatic, bloody, excuse my language, influence with Iran? Iran thinks we're the mini-Satan if it thinks America is the Satan. And if they want to have a go-between, which is what the Foreign Office kept telling me when I kept saying to them, do it, they said, oh, well, we can be the go-between for the USA. If Iran needs a go-between, which they don't, but if they did, they'd go to Qatar. They wouldn't come to us. The reality for us is that right now we should do what we can, and that is to immediately proscribe, which means make illegal in law, and to
the IRGC.
IRGC. That's a starting point.
I've asked you a lot when we've talked about international affairs, whether it's Ukraine or elsewhere, Israel. Actually, a lot of people go, look, and I'll get messages all the time. Oh, A, you're a warmonger. B, you and me, whoever we're talking to. B, what's it got to do with us? These are things that are happening on the other side of the world. It's not a problem. But Iran is very much our problem in terms of not just the terror threat and the ability it has to sort of just stir trouble in the Middle East, but the terror threat in the UK on our streets to British people. It's a real threat today.
Very much so. That's why prescribing them will defend people in the UK. So we are doing what we should, priority, defend your borders. It's bonkers to me that the IRGC, who, by the way, stir up Islamic extremism and support many anti-British organizations. And we've actually had videos of their generals talking directly to organizations meeting who want to carry out vile acts in the UK. All of that has been going on. So by banning a few people doesn't do anything. You've got to get to the root of the organization. That's about the strongest thing that we can do, and it's the one thing, actually, that will hurt them. And if other countries do the same, then it suddenly becomes really difficult for Iran to operate, and for that matter, to get arms.
Just on other international affairs, to stick with that briefly, you've been talking about this for a long time, spoken to you many times about the Chinese super embassy, one of the biggest embassies I think China would have in the world, that's being planned right next to the Tower of London, just across the river from our studio. And we've seen images of the plans before, with this secret basement before. More detailed plans revealed in the Telegraph today, but crucially also we've known about this concern that this embassy will be right by some very, very important communication cables for the city. Now we know just how close, like about a metre away. We're told that Keir Starmer is going to give the go-ahead. Local Tower Hamlets Council went, no, we're not giving the go-ahead to this embassy. That's been overruled basically by the government. They've been looking at it. It looks like they will be going ahead with approving it. How big is the risk to us, to our security, that we would have a Chinese super embassy in such a significant part of London?
Well, first of all, it's a threat, and it's an increased threat, but the threat is there. China has absolutely no regard for democracy, freedom, the human rights, all the other stuff that we take for granted here in a way, political freedom.
I don't take it for granted anymore.
Well, but my point is that they don't, and they've already said that they're with their allies, Russia, Iran, by the way, yet again pops up, and North Korea. They've called for a new world order, and that new world order means sweeping away the West in terms of its beliefs and politics, and reinstating essentially what they think is the normal form of government, which is dictatorship from the top down. People do as they're told. And so all of that is part of it. The other big problem that they face to us is they're dumping all their overproduced product from an economy which at the moment isn't that great domestically. They're dumping that product on European and American markets if they can, hence the row over tariffs with China. But the reality for us is if we do a deal with China, and part of it is with this embassy, and then do some ghastly sort of trade arrangement. All they'll do is dump their mass-produced and slave-produced, often slave labour, very rife in China. All their products like solar arrays, batteries, electric cars, all produced artificially cheaply, subsidised and dumped on the UK markets. And we won't have a car industry after they're finished with us. This government is ridiculous, really, over China. I'd have to, I fell out with my own government over this before, even last time round, but this lot have got even worse. They're on bended knee, Project Kowtow to China to get this ridiculous trade arrangement, because they're so, I heard you earlier on, they're so pathetically desperate over growth. And they're then reaching now to China for growth. They won't get growth. They'll just get dominated.
China's not about win-win. China's about one side winning.
They sell much more to us than we ever sell to them. And it's not going to be about growth. It's going to be about getting rid of their debt, which they've got. So the reality of this is no longer Project Kowtow. It's Project Slither. They seem to be slithering over to China in the hope that China will rescue this disastrous mess they're in over here on the economy.
I dread to think what they're going to come back with after this.
And the embassy, I have to tell you, is an absolute unmitigated disaster. First of all, when America wanted to build a big embassy, they went south of the river where there was literally no major issues about where they put their embassy. To find this sitting right opposite the Tower of London, one of the biggest tourist spots, massively increased with 200 extra spies going to be housed in there. They redacted all of the usage of that embassy, wouldn't show it officially to the government. It's now finally got the light of our attention, but that was part of the planning process, and they promised them something which they should never have done, because that's out with planning permission. And so all of this is going to be judicially reviewed. Of that, I'm absolutely certain.
I certainly hope so. But I wouldn't put it past them to allow anything as mad as this. Let's talk about censorship as well, because the government has been talking about censoring, or basically shutting down X, Elon Musk's X, formerly known as Twitter, over the concern about these AI images, these deepfake images of women where they put out photographs, they then put in a bikini or in sexual positions. It's happened to children as well. It happened to me over the Christmas period. I don't know why someone would want to be in a bikini. Weirdly, they changed my face and my hands as well. It's a rather bizarre thing, but it is a very disconcerting thing to happen to you. It didn't upset me. I can absolutely understand why it would upset most women that it would happen to, and certainly to children. But should the government be threatening to basically remove a social media company, perhaps the biggest source of political news online from Britain, because they don't like some AI images?
Well, I think, as I understand it, under the law, they can be proceeded against for the specific issue you're talking about, which is using AI to reshape or change or, unclothe individuals. I think, as I understand it, that is an offence.
They said they're going to make it illegal. Apparently, it's not illegal to make them; it's illegal to share them.
That's exactly the point. So it's already an offence. The part of it is, and by all means, what they're talking about now, I think, is asking AI to do that job is what they want to get to. I think in the world that we have at the moment, it gets more and more difficult as more of these media internet companies get going and expand. It's going to be a very difficult issue to do it in one country when it's available elsewhere as well, which is half of the problem now. It's not like the old days of newspapers, where a newspaper could be stopped or blocked.
But these big companies, they do know how to do. They do know how to stop. People can use their VPN.
They could do it tomorrow.
Exactly, they do know how to do it. I don't consider someone's freedom of speech to be in any way curtailed by their inability to put a random woman in a bikini.
Elon Musk always throws that one at you. It's not, the answer is that's not freedom of speech. That's an attempt to misuse somebody else's rights, which is their rights of privacy. And I think that is critical. So defending that, I'm all in favour of. But what I think we've got to do here right now is try and get other countries and ourselves to accept to do these sort of things together, which is to say protect individual freedoms and rights, is actually the opposite of what Musk is arguing about over this.
Yeah, indeed. Can I also ask you about this Jewish MP, is a Labour MP who has been basically, it's extraordinary, banned from going, is it Bristol MP, Damien Egan, banned from visiting a school in his own constituency in Bristol because basically pro-Palestinian teachers and activists kicked up, said they were going to wear keffiyehs. Some of the parents said they would not, and basically chant their slogans, and that there was going to be trouble, and the school decided for sort of security and safety reasons, they would not allow the MP to visit because he is Jewish and he is a Zionist. He supports Israel, as the vast majority of Jews in this country do, as indeed the majority of people in this country do. What do you make of this? Because I don't think this is an issue with just one school. I do think we have a major issue, as we've seen the Maccabi Tel Aviv issue, where we have
exactly. I was going to say that.
Well, we just have a whole class of public servants in this country, public sector workers, but in particular it's NHS, schools, police, whoever, where these anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, pro-Palestinian views are now just totally taking hold, and it's a problem, isn't it?
Well, it's a problem for officialdom. It's not a problem, I think, for ordinary people who don't like any of this nonsense.
No.
The truth is that that MP cannot and should not be blocked from anywhere in their constituency. It is their right. In fact, in the old days, people used to get dragged to the bar of the House and could be locked up for blocking somebody from doing what their duty as an MP is, which is to be in their constituency, to deal with their constituents, and not have any let or hindrance to what they do. So first and foremost, this is absolutely appalling. It gets to the heart of what we believe to be our concept of democracy. The trouble is that I find this time and time again. What's happened is I think so many of these organizations are just terribly led. Yeah. They're led by people who have no courage and who have no concept of leadership. You know, I served many years ago in the army, and I have to tell you, in the army, you drill down onto the idea that leadership means putting yourself last, but always making sure the decisions you take can be supported and backed up. And you protect each individual soldier, and the same goes for society. The job of everybody, from head teachers through to police chiefs, etc., is never just to give in to those who threaten them, but to stand up for the rights of those that they have charge for. And I think this is where we've gone so badly wrong. So many of these people seem to have lost the plot and then run away. Maccabi was a classic example. Yep. We have what it is now, police making up evidence that was completely untrue. I remember going to this and I was saying, well, they've been to Ankara in Turkey and there were no problems at all there at the football matches. Why are we thinking that it's going to be worse here?
But this is the issue. We've got police who we now know are, I mean, the Chief Constable of Westminster Police is a proven liar. Full stop. How on earth can he run a police force? How on earth can anyone's conviction be trusted? If he leads a culture where it's okay to lie, to cover your back, what else are those police officers lying about? In case are they fitting people up? Are they making up evidence? I mean, you know, we've seen numerous cases where lies have been told. And then you've got the schools. 16-year-olds are going to have the vote at the next general election in England and Wales. Those 16-year-olds are being taught by teachers who think in some cases it's unacceptable for someone to be Jewish and pro-Israel to be allowed to visit their school. I'm frankly, I'm not going to, I use this word advisedly, I'm terrified right now of what's going on.
Well, I'm appalled because what we have is we have a country which you say is free, where freedom of speech exists, where people can visit schools, obviously, where their backgrounds are checked or something in some respect with regards to safeguarding. But apart from that, they have every right to visit, and an MP does too. And freedom of speech means you may not like what somebody says, you may not in fact agree with any of it, but they have the right to say it, providing they're not essentially defaming you or causing a criminal offence. And all of this gets forgotten. And so what we get is a lot of virtue signalling from people who run organisations in the UK, the bureaucracy, etc., too often pandering to a tiny minority who only have to shout on the internet, and everybody runs away and says, oh, I must shut that down, I must stop so-and-so because there are people that don't like it. Yep. The answer is their job is to defend the concept of our democracy and our rights and freedoms. It is not to therefore ban people because they think it's going to cause a problem.
Absolutely.
It's our rights and freedoms which matter. You know, generations fought for them, and I think, therefore, we need to re-educate many of these guys and women.
I think we need to sack a lot of people, but there we are. Just finally, I must ask you, one of your former Conservative colleagues, yet another one, Nadeem Zahawi, former Chancellor, former Chairman of the party, former Cabinet Office Minister, he has defected to Reform. A lot of people are saying it's a big coup, very senior former Tory who's going over to Reform. Others are saying, well, he just wanted Tory peerage. They said no, and he's heading off to Reform with his tail between his legs. Do you think that he is a big loss to the Conservative Party? Is he a big gain for the Reform Party? And are you ever likely to follow suit?
I'll answer the last question first. No.
I think a lot of people in Reform would welcome you.
Yeah, well, there's a long welcome for them because I'm not going. I'm very happy with the leader that we've got at the moment, and she's making very good progress. In fact, I saw on the polls the other day when they do who do you trust most as leaders of the main party, she comes out top. For every group, they comes out top, which is interesting, actually. But the main point I'd make is, look, I've known Nadeem for ages. He was a friend. I didn't talk to him about this beforehand. I haven't seen him for a little while now. But like many of those who lost their seats, in fact, he didn't lose his seat. He actually resigned and left. So I'm not quite sure what he thinks he's going to be doing in reform, because apparently he didn't want to be an MP any longer and backed off.
Maybe that peerage is coming.
Well, that peerage, maybe, I don't know. But all I can say, if it's really all about a peerage, it's not worth it, frankly. Okay. And I say simply to those who are thinking about it, I think very carefully what you want to do. It's your responsibility if you want to do it, but there are plenty of good people kicking around, and I'm sure we're very spoilt for choice for people that we know could do a very good job.
Sir Ian, always good to talk to you. Duncan Smith, former Conservative Party leader, thank you very much. 12:23 is time. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear more from Tom Slater. We're going to hear from you as well on various different topics. Hold on, hold your hats, because Georgina in London is on the line. We'll be hearing from her. The number to call is 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:26 is time. Let's get a quick word from Tom Slater, editor of Spiked Online, about Sir Ian Duncan Smith, what he had to say there. I mean, he was a bit caustic about Nadeem Zahawi. He's certainly not going to go. I tell you what, I reckon an awful lot of people in Reform would be quite happy to have someone like Ian Duncan Smith move over to Reform, because he's actually been on the right side of a lot of major debates, speaking up and very critical of the last Conservative government, as opposed to serving in the last Conservative government.
And he is clearly has no intention of making that move over, from the indication he gave you there. Very straight answer to a straight question. I suppose the other thing for Reform at the moment, and it's reflected in the Nadeem Zahawi thing and the reaction, is, you know, if you had a former Conservative Party leader make the change, trying to rebuff this claim that you are just the Tory Party repackaged, would be very, very difficult. Interesting thing though, because in the polls, these polls were taken before Nadeem Zahawi's defection, but YouGov's latest, which is incidentally Nadeem Zahawi's, the firm that he set up many moons ago, shows that Reform are kind of tailing off, but partly because immigration as an issue is less salient than it was not too long ago. But also,
it's not gone away at all. There's this nonsense about the net migration.
All these things are
That's
relative,
because 250,000 young Brits who would have been, great contributors to our economy have left the country.
All these things are relative as well. It could just be because of the fact that cost of living is biting people more than the alternative, what have you.
It's January. People are worried.
But it would be interesting to see how Reform weathers this current period, because it seems like partly because immigration is just less on people's minds than it was a few months ago, but also because of the fact that from a low base admittedly, the Tories seem to be starting to make a very small.
Kevin
very
Badenoch is
marginal
out and about more.
climate. Yes, so it's how they negotiate this is going to be interesting. And also, I think when you see polling numbers like that, the discussions around should there be some sort of pact, either formal or informal, will start to heat up. So we might be talking less about defections and more about cooperation.
I don't have a shadow of doubt in my mind. I think that if they actually had a pact before an election, it would harm both parties. But I think that would put people off at both sides.
Yeah.
But I think a pact afterwards, a coalition afterwards, 100% they'd do that. And there'll definitely be sort of standing candidates down there. Don't spend your time campaigning against Ian Duncan Smith if you're in Reform. Why would you do that? You'd be campaigning against some sort of, Rory Stewart-esque, almost the Lib Dem type Tory, wouldn't you? I mean, it's obvious to me that that is what's happened. And we saw what Nigel Farage did, in 2019. Boris Johnson's victory was only so great because of Nigel Farage standing down 250 candidates.
No, precisely. And I suppose it's still a long way to go till the next general election, although I know that Farage has said he expects it to come in 2027, but I don't think there's any reason to think that the Labour MPs who are going to lose their seats are going to go bring it on sooner.
No,
exactly. It's the definition of turkeys voting for Christmas. They needed to play for time as much as is humanly possible, to be frank. But they want to. I think what would be interesting is can they bounce back or / maintain, because it's just one poll, the lead that they have had. Because as soon as you're if you can hold on to kind of high, low 30s nowadays, given how fragmented our politics is, that could give you a majority.
I think it's all to play for.
By the same token, you tick down just a few points and it could be a very different picture.
And there's a difference between sort of 50 seats and 300 seats. Absolutely, it's going to be an interesting few years. Stick with us, guys. Right now, let's get to your phone calls. 0344 499 1000 to have your say. And indeed, Ian's on the line in Bedfordshire, wants to talk about Nadeem Zahawi's defection. Ian, what do you make of it? A good thing or a bad thing?
Hi, Julia.
Hello.
Thanks for taking my call.
Well, thanks for calling.
I'm an ex-Conservative Party member from last year.
Yeah.
I gave up my membership of the Conservative Party and joined Reform.
Yeah.
And I like to tell Reform and Nigel Farage, I'm not going to vote for any ex-Tory that he puts in my
Hold on a minute. It's OK for you as an ex-Tory voter to go to Reform, but it's not OK for an ex-Tory MP to go to Reform. How do you work that out?
Because I wasn't a member of the government that got us in this trouble of where we are now. That's why it's all right for me as a voter to go, but not them.
So unless there's evidence that they stood up and campaigned against some of the crucial things. See, I would say someone like Steve Baker, again. I would say Craig McKinley. I would say Doug Smith. People who were on the right side of history on censorship, on vaccines, on immigration, on net zero. You name it. They were speaking out and being honest, criticising the government. Standing up to them, trying to actually take action to improve, to help us, the people. I mean, would you welcome any of them?
Well, probably not. I mean, you found a couple there, fair play to you. But as far as I'm concerned, the rest of them, most, if not 99% of them, are fake Tories and closet Lib Dems. The whole bunch of them.
And what do you think is the key difference between a Tory and a Reform MP? What are the key issues? What are the key views that would mean you'd say this person isn't for me?
I think Reform, from what I've seen of them, are promising that they're going to do something about immigration. Yeah. Now, if they get in and don't, they'll be in the same position that the Conservative Party are now. But the Conservative Party have been in, not done it, told us they were going to do it, not done it.
No, not just not done it, done the opposite.
Well, yeah. I mean, we had the Brexit thing, the whole Brexit fiasco.
Yeah.
Theresa May trying to throw the election, which she won by the skin of her teeth, unfortunately for her, after she put out that stupid manifesto by accident,
You know the Tory vote. You know the Tory vote went up in that election. She lost loads of seats, but the Tory vote went up by I think 3 percentage points.
Yeah, odd that.
Yeah.
Probably the Blue Rinse Brigade.
Little known fact there.
Took the manifesto and said no thanks,
but
and voted her out, didn't they?
You just don't trust them.
I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them. Not one of them.
Very good.
No.
Ian, really interesting to hear that. Thank you very much indeed. Right, hold on to your hats, folks. Georgina's on the line in London. Good afternoon to you, Georgina.
Good afternoon, Julia. Good afternoon, Tom.
Oh, you got a big smile from him there.
Oh, bless him. I'm ringing up about the cancellation of X. This is not This is the cancellation of X is all about censorship, Julia, and nothing else. No government officials like to be criticised, and a socialist government certainly does not want criticism, even if the criticism is more than justified, which it most certainly is. X is the only free speech platform that cannot be censored. And there are millions of British voices that want to air their displeasure about the gross mismanagement of our country and its people. Apart from talk, it's their only emotional outlet or political outlet, and the socialists don't like it. This has nothing to do with the safety of our children. If that were the case, we would not still have rape gangs in operation, and this government would not be allowing gender experimentation on our children. This is purely another insidious act of this socialist government to take away our voice and our freedom of information. It's disgraceful, Julia, when our women and girls are at risk every day because of illegal migration, and the government think this acceptable. But if we have a voice and we want to voice our opinion, that we're looked upon as a threat to this government, we're branded racist, far-right, bigot or Nazi. Remember that the truth is the enemy to the socialist government, and they will try to bury it as quickly as they can, even if it means hiding behind the skirts of our women and girls and using our women and children as the excuse for their nefarious intentions.
Absolutely. Every single word, as always, Georgina. Thank you. For the love of God, stand for office, please. I say it every time. Please, Georgina, stand for office. 12:34 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking about, is it true that London is now safer when it comes to the issue of crime, as the Metropolitan Police Chief and indeed the London Mayor Sadiq Khan have been claiming? And why, oh why, will the Prime Minister not ban cousin marriage? We know it causes horrific birth defects. We know how damaging it is. It's banned in many other countries. It's pretty much predominantly only carried out by certain communities in this country. Why on earth is it not happening? We're going to be talking about that up next. First up, though, it's time now to tell you how you could be with a chance of winning a trip of a lifetime to San Francisco. Talk is giving away not just the flights, a 3-night stay at a 4-star Intercontinental Hotel and £2,500 spending money, plus tickets to the Super Bowl to top it all off. Listen to how you can enter.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Very, very good luck. You do not want to miss out on the trip of a lifetime. We'll take a quick break. Up next, lots more guests. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. It's coming up to 12:38. Let's talk about Khan's London, Sadiq Khan's London. Apparently it's safer than ever. Or is it? We'll talk about this right now with Guy Dampier. He's Senior Researcher on Nationhood at the Prosperity Institute and joins us. A very good afternoon to you, Guy.
Very good afternoon to you too.
It's interesting that we had this sort of a bit whingy-moany from the Metropolitan Police Chief, Mark Rowley, yesterday, saying, well, all these people on the internet saying that London's such an unsafe city and, you know, stab city and all of that, but actually we're much safer than many other worldwide cities. I mean, comparing us to Chicago is a bit of a worry, but there we are. I suppose it's better than comparing us to Caracas or Moscow. But basically saying, look, we're actually, you know, we've actually seen a lot of crimes like homicide going down and it's a much safer city. And we've had, you know, Sadiq Khan, the London Mayor, doubling down on that. But latest set of stats suggest, yeah, it depends which figures you pick, doesn't it?
It very much does. So it's certainly true that big, very notable crimes like homicides are down, but equally those are down across the entirety of the United Kingdom. And to some degree, that represents improvements in technology, better policing, and an older population.
Yeah.
What we are seeing, though, is an increase in lots of crimes that affect a lot of people. So, you know, homicides are a fairly rare crime, but we're seeing a massive increase in shoplifting, in theft, in people having their bikes taken, in sexual assaults as well, dangerous driving. And these are all things that are less dangerous, perhaps, but which you're much more likely to come across. And I think for a lot of people, that's why they feel concerned, because they're on the streets and they don't feel safe on the streets, not because they're being chased by an axe murderer, but because they're worried that someone's going to steal their watch.
But we never were.
Their phone.
London has statistically been one of the safest cities for many years on that front. But again, most of us don't fear that we are going to, as you say, be, you know, shot dead or strangled in the street by a stranger. I mean, that's not what we fear. But we do fear having, you know, our bag stolen, our phone stolen, our bike stolen, you know, the car stolen, a break-in, and we know shops and businesses really struggling with the shoplifting issue. And we have seen this massive increase in the concerns about, you know, sexual assault, particularly, and women being harassed in the street as well. And this is the thing, we're constantly told, oh, no, the figures say it's all safer, and then you look at the figures, and there's some. I don't know if we've got them. We can put them up for those who are watching rather than are just listening. Some of those graphs I think have already been on air, but just so you really clearly know, these are all going not just slightly in the wrong direction. They are going massively in the wrong direction in terms of some of these crimes, and these are the crimes that most people feel, see and are aware of, and their friends or their family members will talk about, and then we're told no, you know, I think we're being gaslighted. We're told no, London's completely safe. It's a figment of your imagination.
Well, absolutely. I think that's most people don't believe it because they can just look around them and see things. You know, I was born in London. I grew up there. When I grew up, you didn't used to have security guards outside McDonald's and various other places. You would never see the security packaging that you now get on every form of steak, but also sometimes, you know, quite cheap products, and you sort of get a bit worried if they're stealing £4 things. That didn't exist before a few years ago. So we can see these visible signs, and no one, I think, you know, we have a very good supermarket system. They wouldn't be spending money on this stuff if there wasn't a real issue.
And the number of security guards. I mean, I'm a very lovely security guard at my local supermarket who helped get the footage of when I had my bag stolen outside. No CCTV, but there were cameras in the supermarket able to catch my bag being stolen, which has led, you know, to someone being charged. Although police have lost him now, can't find him now, and it was over 18 months ago now. But you know, do I have any hope this is ever going to result in a conviction? Not very hopeful right now. But OK, we know that police are catching murderers largely. They're going after some of the serious crimes. But there is just this general view that, OK, the streets are getting more dangerous. But part of that reason is because people think, well, but I can get away with all these things because the police don't act. And that's the reality. We know that police for years have not gone after shoplifters. They don't come to even to deal with burglaries, and they don't do anything about anything. I mean, I was assaulted on, threatened with assault, on the tube. I was literally someone threatened to slash my throat on the tube because it was a teenage girl. I mean, not no conversation beforehand. The police were saying, oh well, they haven't got a record, so we shouldn't prosecute them. And I went, well, I'm guessing I'm not the first person she's done that to. Maybe she should have a record. I mean, I think a lot of this is happening because of a failure of the police to deal with it.
Absolutely, and if you act earlier, then you've got more chance of stopping stuff down the line. I mean, Axel Rudy Cabana from Southport, we all know he had repeated offences which had occurred in schools. There was a deliberate attempt not to go after him, partly because of his youth, partly because of his race, and as a result, they failed to tackle him early. Unfortunately, this is the way the British justice system works. We've not built enough prison places. So you can't send people to prison, which means that you have to let them off with lower sentences, or you give them sentences where they don't actually have to go in, it's just suspended. And then that means they're on the streets and they can commit more crimes, or they realise that they can just commit crimes with very little risk themselves. They commit more crimes, more crime occurs. People who otherwise might not have committed crimes think, well, I can have a go as well. And so you end up needing even more prison places, which still aren't being built. So unfortunately, it's a bit of a cycle.
Yeah, but then we're told there was this amazing crackdown on phone crime in the West End. Haven't we done well? We found all these linchpins. Well, yeah, but they've been operating for the last 5 years and you've done sod all. It's ridiculous. Let's talk about something else that's a very serious issue as well. Cousin marriage, because the White House, among the many attacks they've made on what goes on in this country, instead of attacking just Sadiq Khan, attacking the whole government, the White House has attacked Keir Starmer for his refusal to ban cousin marriage. More and more MPs are speaking out about this. But basically, the first cousin marriage, which is basically unheard of pretty much among the sort of, should we say, the indigenous native community of this country, is particularly prevalent among South Asians, particularly among Pakistanis. It's still legal in this country. However, it massively increases the risk of children having genetic diseases and is incredibly common in certain parts of the country where something like a third of marriages are between first cousins. So they share the same grandparents. That's how closely related they are. This creates problems with recessive genes, and there's just no question mark about how dangerous this is for children, and yet the government continues to turn a blind eye to it, as did the last one. Why do you think they do that?
Well, I think there's a fairly obvious reason. As you say, it's largely one community which is doing it, and there's a fear that if they tackle that, they'll feel that they're targeting that community. The truth is they are, but they're targeting that community because they're doing a very harmful social practice which is causing a huge amount of ill health among their own children. You've just got to be honest.
I mean, I was told that there's one particular prominent hospital where virtually all of the children in with birth defects who are got serious treatment were from that one Pakistani community because this cousin marriage, first cousin marriage, is so prevalent. There's also a concern not just for the children. There's also a big concern for the freedom of the women in a very patriarchal society. A lot of these women live under, where you're marrying somebody who you're often grown up with, for goodness sake, almost like a brother in some of these larger families, and basically being required to, in an arranged forced marriage, to marry someone in your family. Part of this is about keeping the family money in the family wealth and estate in within the family, and keeping these close ties. But actually, there is a risk to the women as well in terms of their freedom to choose their partner.
Definitely. I mean, there's a statistic we hear quite often that there's about 1 million people in the United Kingdom who cannot speak English either at all or well. But what that sort of obscures is that actually there's quite a big gender divide within that. A lot of those are women, and most of them are South Asian women. They're quite often cousins, as you say, who maybe have come over from Pakistan or have just been raised in a community where they do speak Urdu, or they speak whichever particular Pakistani dialect they're speaking. And therefore, they never learn English properly. They never go outside the community. They never engage with British people. And then that leads to the second problem, which the White House, they talked about the civilizational risk, which is it creates a very insular community. If you're entirely marrying within the community, if most of your engagements are within the community, that is all that people know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just seems to me to be one of those, there's nothing to discuss. It's so obvious this needs to be dealt with. It's quite extraordinary. Claire Dampier from the Prosperity Institute, thank you very much indeed. Tom Slater, Spiked Online, still with me listening to this. Look, we know why he's not doing it. I mean, we know why. But again, it's interesting that the last Tory government did it. The evidence is really clear. We even had the NHS doing its usual nonsense because it's captured as well, basically saying, no, well, there are physical risks to the child of cousin marriage. But this was exposed a few weeks ago. But of course, there are societal benefits, for families. Like, no, No, they are. No. Cousin marriage is a very, very, very big. It's a dangerous issue for the children. It's dangerous for the women, but it also actually has a lot of other implications societally, and it's a problem, and it needs to be stopped.
And this blind spot is created purely by the ideology of multiculturalism, by the idea that it doesn't matter how regressive a certain practice is, or how damaging for the people involved, or how damaging for the broader society, if it's designated as something related to an ethnic minority, then therefore it has to be tiptoed.
It must be bad.
We need a new rule. It's just that if we, as a society, as a democracy, decide that certain things that are going on in society are bad, deleterious, and all the rest of it, then it should be gotten rid of, or things should be changed. These things should not come into
the amount of times the government will interfere in whether or not I can see chocolate at the end of an aisle in a supermarket, and how many calories there should be in in a soup or something, or a cereal. They won't, they want to have rules and what adverts kids can see because of the health of the child and how vital that is, right? But they're not bothered about children being born with severe abnormalities because their parents share the same grandparents. This is a really simple thing to stop.
Yeah. No.
We don't allow people to get married to their father or their mother or their brother or sister because that's incest, and it is illegal, and it's illegal for a reason, because of the power dynamics and because of the physical health of children. And yet you're saying, no, it's absolutely fine that people who both call the same person grandma are able to get married to each other and have children.
No, whenever you see a Labour Party politician talk about the importance of people being free to determine their own lives, it's usually nonsense. They don't give a damn about that in any other sphere of policy, but where there are cultural sensitivities, suddenly that changes. And as you were talking about there with your last guest, there's also a specific problem here, aside from all the other issues that you rightly raise, which is the extent to which cousin marriage mitigates against integration where certain communities are concerned. So this is a no-brainer in many respects. I think many people would come to that conclusion, but we are led by a kind of quite brainless government who are terrified of causing offence, and also terrified of losing some seats in the next election.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, why would people, and it's largely the Pakistani community, why would people in the Pakistani community want to be having the people in the community to be having children with severe birth defects? Why would anyone do that? I can't answer that question. 12:49 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Up next, I'm going to talk to top media lawyer Mark Stevens about the BBC taking on Donald Trump, trying to get that $10 billion lawsuit thrown out. But will they succeed? We'll find out what he thinks up next. This is Talk.
The UK on DAB+. On YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. Welcome back. 12:52 is the time. Let's talk about the BBC. We do that quite a lot. Usually because it's their fault that we have to. But the BBC today is going to try and have Donald Trump's $10 billion defamation lawsuit thrown out of a Florida court. But will they succeed? Well, let's talk to media lawyer Mark Stevens about that. Good afternoon to you, Mark.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. A lot of people keep talking about this being a $5 billion lawsuit, but it is actually $10 billion in total, isn't it? So tell us what grounds the BBC thinks they have for getting rid of this lawsuit, which Donald Trump, of course, brought against the BBC for their splicing together two bits of a speech he made on January the 6th, 2021, ahead of those riots and the Capitol riots, where basically, back in 2024, they put this panorama out with two bits of the speech spliced together 52 minutes apart, where it basically made it look like he'd said, yeah, let's go and have some violence at the Capitol, which, of course, he hadn't said at all. What are the grounds for throwing that out?
Well, when we last spoke about this, Julia, I'd said that I thought the BBC would make this very application, asking Judge Roy Altman to, in Miami, to throw out the president's $10 billion suit, because the programme, one, never aired in America, so consequently, two, Florida lacks jurisdiction, and thirdly, and perhaps crucially, there's no pleading of actual malice against the president, who, as a public figure, that's a necessary element of the case. So both on the law and on the facts, this case, all things being equal, shouldn't proceed. So, yeah, it wasn't in America. There was a lot of talk about maybe some people had watched it using a VPN or that it was available on BBC iPlayer to subscribers. But that seems to have been thrown out. But also, you mentioned not just the malice, the deliberate attempt to try and damage him, but there's also, I suppose, no evidence that he has been damaged, given that this show aired only in Britain a couple of weeks before the November 2024 election. Looking back at what had happened, and of course he won that election. Yeah, he did, and under American law, an edit mistake isn't. It wasn't a mistake. All right. Well, whatever it was. Under American law, particularly the Bill of Rights, but also their libel laws, they have to show not only was it defamatory, but also there was actual malice against deliberate attempt to hurt him. If this case, and that constitutional protection, you have to prove with evidence. And at the moment, on the filings I've looked at in court, which are public, there is none of that there to look at. Donald Trump's missed the statute of limitations to bring it by a couple of weeks to bring it in this court when it was all emerged. I think it's very interesting that it only emerged at that time. After that point, I wonder how deliberate that was. But if he had been, I think if you know that there's been damage, you know immediately. So if you've been libelled, it's not something that you wait a year to learn about. Well, you mean he could have lost the election. This could have been the key thing in a few key states, I think was the argument, but that wasn't the case. But here's the thing. If he hadn't missed the statute of limitations in British courts, would he have a stronger case in the British courts because we don't have protection of freedom of speech and we do have a sort of lower requirement for someone for libel? Yeah, I mean, the Americans have much stronger protections for free speech than we do. But I think this case, even in this country, would have real difficulty because the question here would be, has this program alone caused serious harm to the president? And I think the answer to that is pretty obviously no. There was a lot of reporting about this speech. 8 judges in America, including some Trump-supporting judges, have said that there was credible evidence that the speech warranted or counted as incitement. The Hill, both houses decided to try and impeach him. So all of those things and the reporting around those are more likely to have damaged his reputation than a panorama that wasn't shown in America and unseen by Americans. Okay.
I mean, I think you said at the time you thought, that this could likely be thrown out. The BBC said quite early on, they apologised to Donald Trump because what they did was wrong, but we've had 2 major resignations, including the Director General, the head of news. Yeah. But they also said, they were going to fight this case. Do you think that actually they're more likely to, if it doesn't get thrown out today, to settle? And just finally, what sort of legal costs are we looking at, even if the case was thrown out today?
Well, let's deal with the legal costs. The legal costs, each party pays their own in America. It's not like here where the winner gets the loser to pay. Yeah. So that's the first thing. So each party's paying its own legal costs. But I think that the problem here is that 10 billion is a sizable, well, it's like 90% of the annual budget of the BBC. Yeah. They can't afford to settle it at anything like that amount of money. I mean, if there was a nuisance claim for £50,000, yeah, of course you would settle it. Yeah. But I don't think this is a commercial settlement situation.
Although Trump has settled for far less from other American...
He has, but he's never gone this low, and I think his lawyers are on a no-win, no-fee, so they're in for a slice of the action. Yeah. So they're going to keep the numbers as high as they possibly can to line their own pockets.
Right, fascinating. Mark Stevens, thank you very much indeed. Media lawyer there, Mark Stevens. He was right. He predicted on the very first day this came out, this was going to be what's happened. Tom, so did you think Donald Trump's got a case?
Well, I mean, time will tell, but at the same time, I think it was mainly about proving the point and putting the wind up the BBC and all the rest of it. Rather,
I was in favour of that.
Surely that would come. But as someone who was sat in Britain, the idea of licence fee payers having to foot the bill for the